It is 5:29 and I will call the meeting to order. Council, have you had an opportunity to review the agendas, specifically consent agenda? Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would ask that we move the fall coffee with council summary out of the consent agenda and actually make it an item for discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Can we pull the regular council meeting minutes from September 26th out, please, to discuss it?
Very good. Anyone else? We should have a motion as amended then. Councillor Hibbs?
I'll make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And with respect to the overall agenda, any additions, deletions, adjustments to be made there? If not, we still need a motion for acceptance, please. Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the agenda as presented. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, just point of order. It would need to be amended because we've added the 2 consent agenda items to it. As amended then.
Thank you for that update. Keep us on track. Anyone else? All those in favor? Unanimously approved. Thank you. All right, let's start with the fall coffee with council summary then, please. Go ahead, Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So the reason I asked for this to be removed from the consent agenda simply is because I just had a couple of questions, actually. I guess let's go backwards. So we'll start at the very end. The what is acceptable for yard waste bins branches, that was a question that I had put there. The answer seems adequate. I guess the only thing I want to pass on beyond that is that the resident that brought that to my attention was quite adamant that even following a discussion with bylaw themselves, that this was not necessarily the understanding that was being enforced. So I guess I just want to clarify that this is in fact what bylaw is enforcing, and that I will not have to expect hearing about this lovely dumpster again.
Director Piché?
Yes, absolutely. That has been clarified with bylaw.
Perfect. Okay. Then further going back upwards, what are the rules for gas-powered pedal bikes in town? I guess I just want a little bit of clarification. So a pedal bike that's gas-powered is considered an off-road vehicle, even though it looks like a regular pedal type bike?
That is my understanding. It is an off-road device.
That is your understanding, or that is the case?
That is my understanding.
Okay, well then I would ask for some further clarification on that, because I do quite often get comments on that, and it's not just from one single person, it actually is from different people. So it is an issue. I think it's only an issue in select parts of town, but still, if it is illegal, I want a definite yes it is, and I would like some follow-up on that, please. Further to that, and I apologize for taking this much time, but I think this is important, that if people have brought these things to us, I just want to make sure that they're appropriately dealt with. So moving up to the page beforehand, a resident suggested Lacombe has too many signs, it is distracting, that one. So I do understand, the answer here. I guess I just really wanted to reiterate that I do actually sympathize to them to some degree, and I've actually heard this also from other people, that sometimes in some places in town, there's just so much going on that it's, they would argue hazardous, and I actually would argue that it's hazardous, that you're missing the important signs because there's just so much sign noise, I guess, and our community, especially downtown, safety has to be a significant consideration. So I guess while the answer is adequate, I guess I just wanted to add some color to that conversation, that it's really a complex issue, and I'd like us to think about that going forward when we are making changes or looking at things to do with that topic. And then Finally, I'm just going to pass on the feedback that the answer to the downtown T intersection question, which was near the beginning, was not satisfactory to the person that I took that from. So if that's the case, I should perhaps direct them to speak with the director maybe further to have more clarification on that. Would that be an acceptable? Okay, I'll see if they're interested in doing that, but I do know that they were expressed they weren't satisfactory with that answer. That is everything. I appreciate the indulgence of being able to go through that.
Certainly. Anyone else? With respect to the fall coffee with council summary? Great, thank you. The next item was the September 26th regular council meeting minutes. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I just noticed that in this package and last meeting's package, it says council special meeting. Okay, I just wanted that changed.
Good, I appreciate that. I'm sure that'll be cleaned up for the permanent record. You bet. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Going back to the coffee with council, because we pulled it out of the summary, we don't have a motion that's accepting that. So I would move that council accept the 2022 fall coffee with council summary as information.
Thank you. With the lights on, all those in favor? Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
I move that the minutes of the regular meeting for September 26th be accepted as amended.
Thank you. And all those in favor for that item? Unanimous as well. Thank you. Very good. That brings us down to the presentation portion of the evening, and we have with us our Member of Parliament, Mr. Blaine Calkins. We appreciate you joining us. You're very familiar with the room. Please come on up front here and make yourself at home. Today, our Member of Parliament is going to be speaking to us about several different areas of mutual interest. And we look forward to what he has to say. I think there might be a few technology changes since your days in these chambers. And I will just have you use the microphone for the benefit of those watching us online. If your red light is on the microphone, then you're live there. So just the bar in front. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Yep, not a problem.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Administration. It's great to be back in this room. It's been a couple of years. And again, it's been a couple of years since we've been able to meet normally anyway. So it's nice to be back here. The furniture has changed, but the room is still the same shape. So it's fantastic. I did notice in the 2004 picture, Councillor Foster, who replaced me in the by-election, was in the picture, and I wasn't, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold any grudges over that. So it's great to see you, friends and neighbors. It's nice to be home for the Thanksgiving break week. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I just want to say how proud I am to be a resident of this city. I drive around town on a regular basis, and the town looks great. The facilities are always in fine working order. There's growth. I see buildings being built. I see our community growing, and it just warms my heart. So I'm happy to be home and happy that we've had an excellent fall. I want to thank the city for the excellent work that you did in communicating with residents during COVID-19 and making sure that the community wasn't any further, there wasn't any undue hardships on the community any more than what our provincial and federal governments did. So I think that was fantastic. To our first responders and everybody in the community, police, fire, everybody else, I think, did yeoman's services throughout the pandemic, and it looks like finally we've got restrictions and other things coming. We're moving away from that, hopefully for a good long while. Hope we don't have to revisit what we just had to endure the last 2.5 years anytime soon. So with that, would like to say there are still lots of people in the community that are struggling. So it's not just struggling with some of the issues that happened during COVID, but we're also struggling with coming out of COVID. Lockdowns and the other economic slowdowns, whether they were caused by government or otherwise, has seen an unprecedented influx of cash into our economy, not just here, but around the world, has created, as we know, so a different form of hardships. I met recently with all of the food banks in central Alberta that were available to have a meeting with me. And I can tell you, I'm sure you guys already know these things, demand is up, resources are low. The dollars that get donated don't go as far because the price of everything is going up and the cost of living is at an all-time high. And just imagine now, in a community like ours where property values have held relatively stable, just imagine if you're in a community experiencing all the same problems that we've got here with the cost of fuel, the cost of energy, the cost of food, and just imagine home prices or rent prices doubling or even tripling in certain parts of the community, or at least going up 50% in most of the other parts of Canada. And you soon find out that you're in a very difficult situation. I just had a phone call from a resident of the lodge here in Lacombe who took an apartment on the second floor. Because she took an apartment on the second floor, her rent was reduced by $300 a month for 2 years. So her rent is now $1,500 to $1,700 a month with all the other costs that she has. Her CPP, old age security and guaranteed income supplement, just barely covers the cost. Now, if she volunteers, she gets cranberry juice provided for free, and she gets Meals on Wheels from, of course, our lovely friends and community at Fcss, Family Community Support Services. She stretches her Meals on Wheels to 2 days just to make ends meet. And this is somebody that can currently afford to get by. In 2 years, when her subsidy, her rent goes back up the full $300 a month, she will be in a net negative position on a monthly basis with her cash flow, unless things actually change. This is heartbreaking. I hear this time and time again. I'm sure everybody else in the room does as well. I just came back to Alberta on Thursday afternoon. I substituted in for one of our colleagues at the International Trade Committee meeting, where I found out that we have a serious issue with shipping and with container traffic coming to our shores. And just to put things into perspective, prior to the pandemic in 2019, prior to the World Health Organization's decision, and of course, everything that countries around the world have done, you could get a container out of Beijing or someplace else in the Pacific Rim for $3,000 to $4,000. That's what that container would cost, full of goods, to come across on a ship. At the height of the pandemic here recently, that same container is $30,000. So with the price of shipping that has gone up, now it's subsequently come back down. I'm not trying to sound alarm bells, but it's subsequently come back down. So those containers are still going for anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000, depending on their origin. So we're still looking at triple the costs of a container moving across. The demand is so high for containers going back to Asia that they're now not even waiting for backhaul loads. And the shippers appear to be price fixing like a cartel on how this is working. Our ports are not operating as we know. You heard about our airports. It's no different at our shipping ports. We have the obstacles coming into the country. We don't have enough staff. We have people who have retired, and it's causing upwards pressure on, of course, inflation as well. And the people that are shipping to our country because of the long delays at our ports waiting to offload are now seeking to ship their shipments elsewhere and rail them into Canada. So we are facing numerous uphill battles right now as a nation. We have seemingly more work than people to do the work. And that is problematic. It's not just in places like our ports, but it's also in our healthcare system, doctors, nurses, otherwise in our community. So these are the problems that we have common constituents. The same people that elected you are some of the same people that elected me. And this is what they're telling me for sure. So I know this is nothing new to you, but I think I'll just leave it there. I know that you guys asked me some specific questions, but if it's okay, I would rather go through those things with a matter of a conversation, if that's okay. So I just want to let you know, I have a new leader for our political party. We're still His Majesty's Loyal Opposition. And we'll be focusing on the government getting back to the basics of the things that we know that work, reducing taxes, empowering Canadians to be able to take care of themselves. The latest government, and I'm not here to be partisan, but just to give you a perspective on it, the latest two bills, C30 and C31, one of them is a bill for a one-time only, double the rebate on the HST, GST credit checks coming back to Canadians. That'll provide most Canadians with an extra $200 or $300. And that'll go to folks that obviously qualify for the HST, GST rebates. There is also a one-time $500 rental assistance amount that you have to qualify and be eligible for. So this would be, for example, if you were renting an apartment in downtown Vancouver, downtown Toronto, that used to cost, $1,600, $1,700 a month for rent. Those have gone up to $2,300, $2,700 a month right now. So that's about a week's worth of rent for 1 month. But that money is going out the door to these communities as well. It'll be going out across the country, of course, to folks who need that help as well. And of course, as part of the arrangement with the supply and confidence agreement between the NDP and the Liberals, which gives them a de facto majority government in the House of Commons, the NDP negotiated a dental program, notwithstanding that virtually every province and territory already has a low-income dental program. They're going to be sending out money to families with children up to $600. All told, that's going to affect about the government estimates 11 million households, which is about 18 million people, which is about half our population. So half of our population is now dependent upon ad hoc social assistance in order to get through the month or the rest of the year. That's where we're at. The budget, however, it does appear like the economy is clicking along, thanks primarily to high energy prices, where we see anybody who wants to work in the energy sector again can go back to it if they want to. But of course, even the energy sector is having a hard time attracting workers back. There was significant delay in growth and expansion of so if you were in the operational side of things, you were fine. But if you're a driller or if you're in the exploration and the growth side of the industry, those folks are having a heck of a time attracting and retaining people. But those high energy revenues are filling up the coffers, not only here for the province of Alberta, but helping the nation as well. The German Chancellor was here a little while ago looking for help because, and this is even prior to Nord Stream being incapacitated indefinitely in the Baltic Sea. So looking for help from Canada. We did not return it. We basically told them to go home and we'll send some hydrogen in 3 to 10 years. But our friends in Europe, our allies, our NATO allies, and our, for the lack of a better term, Western liberal democracies that we would consider our peer countries in Europe are going to be in for a very, very rough winter, especially if it turns cold. So we do have some not only local issues here for the folks that are having trouble making ends meet, but people around the world will be experiencing the same thing. I believe Canada is and could have been and should be and can be again a major supplier. We are a reliable producer we have trillions of cubic feet of natural gas under our feet, third largest proven oil reserves in the world. We're not perfect, but we're as ethically and environmentally responsible as any nation on the planet, and we should be providing those resources to the world. We don't turn our money into tanks and weapons of war to inflict or to impose our will on our neighbors or our friends. And this is why I'm looking forward to the conversation that's about to happen in our nation, I think, over the next couple of years. So, Your Worship, I think I'll just stop my political rant right there and do my best to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you very much. And before I forget, I wanted to thank you for your message on social media during Thanksgiving. That was very well said. And it is a time when there is many families still struggling, and not just in the city of Lacombe, but across the province. And if there's ever a time to come together and help your fellow citizens, it's certainly now. So thank you for that. Maybe give you an opportunity to continue on the same line with the energy talks and just speak to us about pipelines and I don't know if you're in a position to give us some glimpse as to the expected completion of the Trans Mountain project, or if that's even being discussed yet, and the implications of that line on the world energy situation we're in right now?
So the Trans Mountain expansion, as you know, was the Kinder Morgan pipeline at one point in time. It is now an asset that belongs to all of us in this room and everybody in this country. The government has clearly signaled its intention to turn that pipeline back over to somebody in the private sector. My guess would be that there would be a large component of that First Nations ownership. So the things that I'm hearing are very unofficial, but I would look to that. The cost of that has gone up significantly, as costs of all things have gone up. But as you well know, sometimes the private sector can build things cheaper than the government. It's not a slag on government. It's just kind of sometimes the way these things work. But that pipeline has been delayed. There was some environmental considerations that caused some delay as we were waiting. I think we were waiting for some owls and waiting for some other things to get out of the way in order to continue on with the pipeline being built. But it will be built. Unfortunately, I don't think it will have the market access. It won't give us the market access. I think that the government is claiming it will. You cannot get a VLCC, very large crude carrier, into the Port of Vancouver. Port of Vancouver can't really grow that much. We can maybe put one more terminal into the existing space. But you can't get a VLCC in there without massive dredging. It's just not feasible at that particular port. So most of the carriers that are going to come in there are going to end up on the American seaboard anyway. So that doesn't really expand our consumer base because most of our crude goes to the United States anyway. It's just going to provide a shipping lane down the West Coast into California and other refineries there that already process heavy crude. So again, without resurrecting Northern Gateway and other pipelines that would have gone out through Rupert and would have been deep water ports until those projects are back on the books, I don't expect that we'll see a large increase in our ability to ship products to different oil, at least to different countries. It will make sure that the refinery in Burnaby has enough capacity or has enough inputs to keep it busy and make sure that the Vancouver Airport and others that depend on that refinery. BC has some interesting, I think they have the one terminal in Vancouver and they have another terminal in Kamloops. And I think those are where every gas station in British Columbia has to purchase their fuel through those two depots, which is causing some problems for gas prices in BC, amongst other things, including the carbon tax. We see fuel prices now in the lower mainland still well over $2 a liter for fuel. If you're in Vancouver or Abbotsford or on the island, you're looking at $2.20, $2.30 a liter for fuel. And the carbon tax is actually set to go up. It's $50 a ton now, and on April 1st next year, it'll be triple what we're doing right now. So that should add another anywhere from 14 to 20 cents a liter to the cost of a liter of fuel, so gasoline. So that's where we're headed on that, where there will be, the government has increased the CPP premiums and EI premiums. The EI is now more than self-funding. So the EI premiums, we call them payroll taxes. Even though the CPP premiums are paid by the employer and the employee to go into that pool, it's not the same as any other pension plan. It's capped. You have a cap. That cap is moving up slightly. The government has indicated that, but that's only for Canadians who are starting to pay into it now. It won't actually help the seniors who paid in at a previous rate. So throughout a couple of generations of Canadians, they will be able to take a little bit more out of the CPP because they put a little bit more in. But at a time right now when Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, it's going to be very difficult. I'll also talk a little bit about interest rates. Worship, interest rates, as you know, have gone up. In the next year or so, we have a lot of people who borrowed money through COVID. We have a lot of people who remortgaged through COVID. And those rates are due to expire, and people will be refinancing and looking for mortgages and I'm concerned that right now with the stress tests that's applied on certain things, the price of the house has gone up, which means your equity is down, which means you may now have to qualify for a CMHC insured mortgage, which is going to mean you have to qualify for the stress test, which means all of the chain reaction things where that is concerned. So you may have been living in your house for 5 to 10 years. You may not requalify for a mortgage in your own home. So because your house has gone up in value and you don't actually have the equity in your home anymore. So these are the kinds of things that are a concern. Bankruptcies, personal bankruptcies and business bankruptcies are at a fairly all-time high right now as well. So our economy is winding its way through that in spite of the fact that there seems to be more work than there are people to do the job. So there is the project at Kitimat is still proceeding well. I've actually got a family member that's working on that. So that's the LNG project. That's the LNG export project that we have. Right now, the world is looking for natural gas. Europe is looking for natural gas. They want to get off of the dependency from Putin. I won't say Russia, but I think they don't trust Putin anymore, which is, I think, beyond fair to say. Like I said, the German Chancellor was here in Canada, I think, looking for help. He has since gone to United Arab Emirates and to Azerbaijan, and they will be filling the pipelines to Germany, and Canada will not anytime soon. In all fairness, I don't think we don't have the capacity right now. Line 5 actually does terminate about 30 kilometers from the St. Lawrence Seaway. That was the pipeline that TransCanada was going to convert. It's line 9, I think. Was going to convert into an oil pipeline for Energy East. That is actually a natural gas pipeline. So, I mean, we do have the ability to, we have the infrastructure in place to pipe vast amounts of natural gas from the west to the St. Lawrence Seaway if we had the desire to build some LNG export terminals, but those things take a long time to get up and going. Even if we were to fast track them, they would still take a couple of years to build. So that's where we're at on that. The government has changed its tone when it comes to energy, but I think that's just the pragmatic necessity is making them change their tone. I still believe firmly that if the current government could get away from oil and gas altogether, if they could wiggle their nose and make it happen, they would do it.
Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Just real quick, you had mentioned the interest rates. I believe your new leader has mentioned that he wants to do away with the Bank of Canada, something to that effect. Maybe I'm wrong. What would that look like? Is there any more talk of that, or?
Yeah, so I mean, I think he was during the leadership race made a comment about whether the current governor of the Bank of Canada is doing a good job. It did create a conversation. The Bank of Canada has actually admitted, as a result of that conversation, that they could have handled things a little bit better. Whether he was right or wrong, and in his assertion running for the leadership of the party, the consensus seems to be, at least for the most part, that the Bank of Canada could be doing a better job when it comes to managing interest rates and managing the influx of cash into the Canadian economy. So it did create, I think, a necessary conversation, Ruben. And there are now people, I think, looking at the Bank of Canada a lot more scrutiny than was happening during the pandemic. And I think that's a good thing. I think that scrutiny and accountability is a good thing for Canadians. So if that's what Mr. Poilievre did with his comments, then I would suggest to you the comments were worthwhile.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So probably 2 years ago, since we had the rural crime symposiums at Lincoln Hall and so forth across the county of Lacombe and Pinoak, I think, as well. At that time, obviously, several RCMP detachments, speaking specifically to Lincoln area. And yet we go to AMA and we hear a lot of the provincial policing. Since some rural crime symposiums a couple of years ago, has there been any improvement on, and I know we went through COVID and I respect that, but most detachments are understaffed to what they are, for example, the municipality may be paying for 16, but I'm only be having 12. I know many shifts in Black Falls, for example, or overtime shifts, you have to have 2 members on to serve both Black Falls and the rural area. And same with Ponoka. I think personally, if the deployment could be fulfilled as their obligation, and secondly, I think the contract for federal funding towards the provincial government goes in 2032, I think. Like, yeah, I guess since crime symposiums, has there been any improvement on getting better deployment so members or detachments are full deployment?
Thanks. We'd be informal. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
What do I do with this? One of the beautiful things about Lacombe is we have our own police force. Let's never change that. And I'm not slighting the RCMP. Look, the frontline men and women that put on a uniform and go out and deal with these issues on a daily basis deserve our utmost gratitude and respect, in my opinion. They're not perfect, but they're our friends and neighbors. And I think writ large, Chris, the issue, do we have policing issues? Absolutely, we have policing issues. The system, the problem writ large is our justice system doesn't actually adequately deal with the problem. Our healthcare system doesn't deal properly with mental health. We don't properly deal with addictions. We don't take those problems seriously enough. And as a result, we have repeat offenders that are looking for whatever reason. You know that you grew up in the same part of the county that I did. Look, these are the frustrating things. So the government is now, as we've seen, has changed the legislation through Bill C-75, through Bill C-5, which is right now in the Senate. They have put bail. They've enshrined in the criminal code things like bail provisions, which means that people get out on bail with the least amount of, as soon as possible, with the least amount of conditions possible. I mean, that's now what the criminal code actually says. And with it's called, I can't remember what the principle and justice is that they're following. They're reducing minimum sentences and claiming that it was the Conservatives that put them in place. I can tell you right now, Bill C-5 has about 12 or 13 provisions in it dealing with firearms, violent firearm offenses in the criminal code, and they're removing all of the minimum penalties from it. Not just, only one of those was a provision that was put in place by Stephen Harper when we were government from 2006 to 2016. The rest of them were put in place by Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Jean Chrétien, and Paul Martin. So they're even getting rid of the minimum sentence the previous Liberal governments have put in place for these crimes. So we have a government right now that seems to be more interested in other arguments than actually getting crime in our streets and getting illegal guns off of our streets. And I look, Chris, I'm just going to be honest with you. If you're a police officer and you went out and put yourself in harm's way every day to take a dangerous offender, a repeat offender, down to the courthouse and just have them out on the street 2 days from now doing the same thing over and over again, there isn't really a lot of incentive for you as a police officer to put your neck on the line. And I'm not making excuses for the police, but the work that we did, that the county councillors and everybody else did, our MLAs did, the reports that we've put out there created that conversation, and the RCMP did respond here locally. They created those rural crime task force groups that went out. Remember, Mark Groves was here. He's unfortunately no longer a serving member of the RCMP, but that's the kind of effort. We drew attention to it, and we actually got some results for a while. COVID actually reduced crime because everybody was home. So we had actually a decrease in rural crime for a little while because, like I said, everybody was home, so your property was not left vulnerable by absence. But now the numbers are actually spiking back the other way, Chris. That's what we're seeing. So until we address some of those other issues, and I think we have an even further problem I think we have a bigger problem with mental health than we had before COVID. I think we have a bigger problem with addictions. We have a bigger problem with drugs coming in, and let's not make any bones about where these drugs are coming from. There are disruptive countries in this world right now that are trying to disrupt what we're doing in our democratic countries around the world. And one of the ways they do that is to get drugs into the country. And where does fentanyl and carfentanil come from? Primarily China. And it's a disruptor in our economy. It's a disruptor in our lives, and it's causing us all kinds of economic havoc and chaos. We have 3 police stations. We have 3 Communist Party of China government police stations running as so-called consular services, but they're actually police stations in Toronto right now. You guys aware of that? That's what's actually happening in our country right now. So they're enforcing the government of China's mandates in Canada, silencing critics of the regime, and strong arming Canadian citizens who might be from China. These are the kinds of things that are actually happening in our country right now. So we have all of these disruptive things that are going on, and it's no wonder that we can't seem to get a handle on this. I have a private members bill that I'm ready to table again. My number is 80 something in the lottery out of 338. So I'm in about the next 12 months, I'll be tabling and debating the bill that I have on rural crime. And that bill seeks to make at sentencing, it requires a judge to take a look at the vulnerability of the property because of its proximity to emergency services. So for those people in rural and remote communities that are being affected, the judge will at least have to make that as a consideration. If anybody shows up with a weapon, whether they use it or produce it during their illegal activities or not, is going to create, they have to consider that at sentencing as well and deal with it appropriately. And I've also changed the definition of a dwelling for the purposes of the break and enter provisions. Typically, break and enter actually means your dwelling or the place that you live. It doesn't actually apply to places like your garage or your barn. I'm changing, my bill seeks to change that to make any building that they break and enter into an offense. So those are the modest things that I can do with the private members legislation, but I'm looking forward to the day when we can get back to sorting the wheat from the chaff when it comes to dangerous repeat offenders and doing what we can do to direct people away from a life of crime, providing hope and opportunity in our communities. And I know, Grant, you're probably now going to ask me about guns.
Matter of fact, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah. All right.
I know with your involvement with the
I need water.
rural crime.
Can I get a glass of water?
Yeah, certainly. We'll have somebody get you one right away. Because of your close involvement on the subject, I know you both from your work on rural crime and the outdoor caucus, conservative caucus, you keep on top of firearms legislation. I just want to know what are the effects of individuals right here in our area that own handguns, say for instance, which is a hot topic, and so with all the recent changes, could you just enlighten us a bit on what is happening in that area?
Certainly, but I think Chris, I think I owe you an apology. You asked me about police recruitment and retention as well.
Specifically getting stronger enrollment members out.
Yeah.
People in China to support passion.
So I'll get back to you. I'll go back and I'll get back to you and council with a specific, I'll go find out what the deal is. I think the RCMP right now is a little preoccupied with some of the other things that they're dealing with, but I will go back and find out. I know that they do have an ambitious recruitment campaign right now, but I'll go see what I can find. So I didn't want to leave you with a sense that I wasn't answering your question. So guns. So the Mass Casualty Commission that's underway right now in Atlantic Canada has revealed that the government has probably meddled through the RCMP. At least certain people in the RCMP feel that investigations were tampered with for the purpose of the political agenda. I don't need to go into any of that detail with you, but these are the things that are seizing, I think, the RCMP right now. And we see that the government is, the current government ran on a campaign to make their community safer by getting guns off the street. But the problem is lawful guns aren't on the street. It's illegal guns that are on the street. The shooter at Portapique didn't have legal guns. As a matter of fact, he was prohibited from having firearms, and he was dressed up as a police officer and had acquired vehicles and such, and disguised himself as one of the good guys while he was being one of the bad guys. So look, anybody who's paying attention to the rules, we don't blame the car when it comes to impaired driving. I don't know why we're blaming the gun when it comes to gun violence. Every day, there's about 2.1 million Canadians, myself included, that are vetted daily, background checked every 5 years. If my wife doesn't want me to have guns, all she has to do on that form when it comes to say, I don't want my husband to have guns anymore, and the police will come and take my guns. That's how fragile gun ownership is in this country. And that's the fine line that gun owners have to walk in order to maintain the ability to possess our lawfully acquired property. I'm very pleased that the province of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba are now challenging the government's ability to use the RCMP in our Western provinces to be the collection agents for their confiscation program. It's not a buyback program. A buyback program means they're buying it back. They didn't own them in the first place, so it's not a buyback. So it's a confiscation program. And now we've seen, so at least in that program, Grant, a gun owner would get some compensation for their property. Now there is a ban on the transfer of handguns between individuals and between individuals and businesses. There are a couple of carve-out provisions in that, but basically what they're saying is everybody who currently owns a restricted firearm right now or a prohibited firearm right now, you cannot exchange that with another person or business in this country, and your property is basically now worthless. And when you are deceased, that property would then be deactivated or forfeit with no compensation. So that's millions, if not $1 billion worth of Canadians' property right there. Government has vastly miscalculated what the value of these and the price and the cost of these things are. But fundamentally, it's just illogical. It's illogical to go after the people who aren't the problem. And I know that sounds like a simple thing to say, but I can't stress it enough. And to take the limited resources that we have right now, frontline officers that are actually supposed to be fighting crime and or evil, and turning them on their neighbors. And the ironic part is, most veterans, most current active members of the Canadian Forces, most police officers have their own personal firearms that are very similar to the firearms that they are issued as part of their duties, so that they can take their own personal firearms to the range and keep in practice and be proficient. All of these arguments, don't seem to matter. But the one thing that bothers me, Grant, is when the government demonizes and vilifies gun ownership, lawful gun ownership in the country, they actually create the very problem that they're trying to prevent. So imagine now if you are an individual that has 20 handguns, and let's say each one of those is $500, on average $750. So you're talking about $15,000 worth of merchandise or property that the government has just made worthless. Those firearms would be worth something in the black market still. The only place that they're going to be worth anything is a black market. So now you're incentivizing, whether the government would admit it or not, they're incentivizing people to even consider as a method of recouping some of their value, being dishonest with the government, because the government has broken trust with them. $15,000 is a lot of money for most people. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but just hear me out. If the government instead said, look, if you are a law-abiding firearms owner and you have a possession of a restricted firearm, we want to know that you have it and we trust you with it. So we'll create an amnesty period for all of the illegal guns that are currently in Canada. Let's bring them into the registry system for restricted firearms, and let's make them legal so we actually know where they are. And let's trust our law-abiding firearms owners. That would actually get more illegal guns off the street. The program that they're talking about is actually going to create more illegal guns, in my opinion, because that's just human nature. So the very, very problem that they're trying to resolve is a problem that they're actually going to, in my opinion, exacerbate. So look, if you want to go after the source of the problem, we have to get a little bit more stringent at our borders. We have the technology, the capabilities are there. If the investment in the infrastructure was there to more adequately scan vehicles and detect these kinds of things, we're not using dogs nearly as well as we used to. We've lost that capability somehow, particularly in our airports and in our ports, and at our border crossings. So until we're prepared to have a conversation about whether or not it's acceptable to discharge a firearm or to own an illegal gun and there's no consequences for it, the whole argument just falls apart. So my advice to my leader will be that we reverse these, I'll call them virtue signaling types of anybody knowledgeable about this. Even the deputy police chief for Toronto, who is now the chief of police for Toronto, when asked by my colleague Dane Lloyd from Sturgeon River Parkland at committee, if a illegal drug buyback program would work on the streets to stop illegal drugs, police chief said no, it would not work. He said, well, why would it work for guns? And the police chief says, well, it won't work. So the police officers even know that it's not going to do anything. So it'll take a different government with a different approach to undo some of the broken trust. But that doesn't mean that that we're not going to have adequate measures in place. I think most Canadians do want responsible controls in place for gun ownership. Most gun owners want that. I want that. We haven't had fully automatic firearms. Fully automatic firearms have been illegal in Canada since the 70s. And restricted firearms are only allowed to be used at a range that's approved by the Government of Canada, by the Chief Firearms Officer of the province. So when the Prime Minister stands up and says you don't need a 220, you don't need an AR-15 to hunt deer, you're not allowed to use an AR-15 to hunt deer because an AR-15 is a restricted firearm. It's only allowed to be legally discharged at a range. So if that's the government's knowledge of firearms, then it's no surprise that we're where we are today, Grant.
Thank you for that. Cheerful news.
Yeah, look, I'm going to continue fighting. My leader is going to make an announcement on Shadow Cabinet here in the next little while, and I'm fairly certain that I'll have firearms will be part of my responsibility going forward. So,
Well, I, for one, appreciate the work that you do on protecting the rights of lawful firearms owners, which there are many, many in this city and area. So thank you for that.
yeah, no, my pleasure.
Do you most have any questions? I think we don't want to overextend on your time. I know you had allotted a half an hour for us. We appreciate
No,
your
but
time here.
I'm happy to come. I'm happy to be invited. So please keep inviting me. When I don't get invited, I start getting nervous. But keep doing the great work. I am such a proud resident of this community. I love this town, city, and you guys are doing a great job. So keep up the great work and what you're doing. And if there's anything I can do to be of service, I will get back to you with some of the recruitment stuff, Chris, on the RCMP. I think our province is going to have to be facing the question of whether or not we want to continue with the RCMP or if we want to do what Quebec and Ontario and other jurisdictions do, which have their own police, provincial police force. I'm not going to weigh in on that. That's a provincial decision to make. But I believe that contract, Ed Stelmach signed us through to, did it go that long?
32, I think.
So anyway, but if we were going to change, I mean, we got about 10 years left. And they start renegotiating those contracts years in advance. So those negotiations for contract policing will be coming up again real soon. So, but I would imagine, well, here in Lacombe, we don't necessarily have the issues, but communities all around us will be having those issues. Not the least of which, Chris, was the government did negotiate retroactively the pay increases for RCMP. So a community like Ponoka is on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars, as is Black Falls, Red Deer, and other places. For back pay for RCMP officers. But they do need to be paid. I understand that, but the federal government negotiated it and the municipalities all had to pay it. So that's a bit of a tough pill to swallow. But the federal government does pay 30% of the cost of the RCMP. The province pays 70%. And then the province has, of course, its agreements with its municipalities on what they pay depending on the size of the community. So that's how that works. I'm sure you guys already know that, but I'm sure our province is going to have that conversation. My guess would be anybody that's a serving, if we do decide to go down that road and get our own provincial police force, I would imagine most of the RCMP would be offered the job anyway. I don't know where we're going to come up with thousands of replacements overnight. So I don't know what that transition looks like, but it's interesting times politically on the horizon, federally and provincially. So anyway, I won't take up any more of your time here at council. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope I was informative, if not entertaining, and look forward to seeing you guys out and about in the community. And please call upon me for anything if I can be of assistance in any way.
We certainly will do that, and we appreciate your time here this evening, and also appreciate all the large number of events that you continue to take part in our community and the area. I have an opportunity to be at several myself, and then you more oftentimes than not you attend, and I know you've got a lot more on your plate than just the city itself.
I still want to
Well, we
apologize for
appreciate
last
it.
Remembrance Day to you and Scott. That was on me. I messed that one up, but we'll do it again hopefully this year. So,
Sounds good.
all right, take care, guys.
We give Blaine a few moments to consolidate his gear there. We have, I believe, online our manager of FCSS rather, Crystal Zenz. I'm sorry, not manager, executive director. My apologies, Crystal. And here in the gallery, we also have the co-chairs for that organization, Deb Salmon and Sally Wienick. We thank you both for attending as well. Crystal, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We certainly can. Thank you very much. Because you are joining us online, I will give you notification should you choose to speak longer than 25 minutes. I will let you know. We have allotted a half an hour for both your presentation and for any questions that council may have and your time to answer them. So if you would care to start now, the floor is yours.
I will. I also get kicked out of this library at 7 your time, so I have to be done. I'll have no choice.
All right.
I had to go somewhere kind that gave a charity some in-kind space to have this presentation. So thank you, Mary Creasy and Council, for this opportunity to present and advocate for our FCSS programs. You did already introduce my board co-chairs, but I'd also like to thank Deb and Sally for joining in. I'll let Denise deal with that guest, but for joining in person in the gallery. I appreciate their commitment to the community. So I'll just share screen now and make sure that goes all okay here. And you can tell me when you can see my screen. I definitely practiced lots today, but I was really rusty on Teams. When you can see the presentation, just let me know.
We can see it.
Oh, perfect. And you're a little bit delayed, so I will try to be patient with and not talk so fast. But I think you guys also were provided this as well. And so a little introduction, I'd just like to open with our FCSS mission statement for our chapter. FCSS facilitates the delivery of locally driven preventative social initiatives and programming which enhance the well-being of individuals, families, and community. A little refresher on what our FCSS purpose is. The Minister of Community and Social Services, Jason Luan, said it best opening our 2021 convention. FCSS is a hand up, not a hand out. What that means is we're the earliest prevention stage, which is called primary convention or prevention. Our budget has 3 streams, which is sometimes a little confusing even for myself as I was just in a learning curve this year. We have an eligible stream, which is our FCSS provincial and municipal mandated dollars. And we have a non-eligible stream, which is through donors, grants. And out of 204 FCSSs, there's only a few that have charitable status and isn't a direct program under the municipality. So not being a department of the municipality, under our charitable status, we do a lot of charitable work, fundraising, grant writing, and that sort of thing. Here for our values, respect community wisdom, encourage citizen involvement, promote volunteerism, endorse partnerships and collective action, and demonstrate transparency, inclusivity, integrity, and provide accessible, effective programs and services, and respond to ever-changing community needs. As I reviewed the council's strategic goals, I found they aligned very closely with ours, if not complemented them. And the overlying theme was we both wanted to make the city of Lacombe the best place to live for everybody. I can't see you guys, so if you have a question, just interrupt me. I won't go through our strategic plan thoroughly, but our 3 pillars are effective governance, effective communication, and effective service delivery. Our statistics at a glance, we closed our 2021 year with serving just over 8,200 citizens, as well as we had 80 volunteers, which just banked under 600 hours. That was lower than normal because we were still in COVID restrictions. I won't spend a lot of time on our programs, but I wanted to highlight our core programs, which is senior services, Lifeline. We have Seniors Week, dementia-friendly programs called Opening Minds Through Art, the Memory Cafe. We have strong partnerships with our beautiful library in our city, the Primary Care Network, and other businesses. One of our larger seniors programs is our home support program to keep seniors in their houses longer, as well as our famous Meals on Wheels program. We expanded some of our youth programming thanks to the Rec and Culture grant this year. We had teen trips in partnership with some local businesses and the Connects Transportation. We were sold out every single week, so we're hoping to bring those back in the summer of 2023. We have a Rainbows Bereavement program with a partnership with our Wolf Creek School Division. We teach the Babysitter Home Alone course, and we hope to bring back our Leaders of Tomorrow awards. For individuals and families, we have lots of different programs, the volunteer tax program. So volunteers will do the individuals' taxes so they can qualify for the benefits that they need to apply for in order to sustain their essential needs. This year, we had our first ever Family Expo alongside Lacombe Days and our Lunchbox Theater. And some of our other important programs are our outreach program, which is one-on-one supports and referrals. And we have community volunteers that work in all of our programs, as well as our community supper is back since the COVID restrictions have also ended. We have some big goals for 2023, and we're excited to keep helping the community and the most vulnerable people in our city. Some of our successes, we've been able to recruit some new board members with diverse skill sets and who deeply care about the community. That is also on our strategic plan. We co-hosted the Community Justice Awards alongside with the city and the Solgen's office and the city police. We were able to highlight our community as well as our preventative collaborations on a big stage. That was the first ever time it's been hosted outside of Edmonton or Calgary. We had our first ever board staff retreat, which was a huge success. We're trying to increase our community profiles and collaborations, social media presence through campaigns such as our kindness campaign, where we saw 26 businesses join. Vesta Energy is a new partner and so good to our community. They created the campership program, which sent over 20 kids to camp free. We used our fill-a-fridge reserve for the first ever spring fill-a-fridge to meet the high cost of living for our clients that were suffering those heat and electricity bills in February and March. There's a brand new accountability framework that's launching in November. We also had a big wave of Ukrainian newcomers in April and May. We reacted quickly and opened our Tools for School program for them. We translated our applications into Ukrainian, as well as they got to access the spring fill-a-fridge. We also extended our office hours to accommodate and be more accessible to our clients during lunch hour. We had high traffic over lunch hour and made the decision to extend our hours and open accordingly. Some of the challenges: in 2019, we lost one of our near and dear programs to our Heart Parent Link. That also changed our budget significantly, as well as 2020, COVID came, 2020 and 2021, and even this year, we're still living off some COVID money, some of that grant money. So 2023 will be the first clear picture of what our budget will look like post-Parent Link and post-COVID funding. The bounce back from COVID also will take some time to rebuild our volunteer power. There's multiple changes at the provincial level. There's new reporting systems and increased visibility, which has been really great in our community, will also increase the demand of our programs because more people will know about them. I would say our number one challenge in this past year has been the Connects operations. And I know Connects is always a big topic, so I'll speak to that a little bit later. But some of the challenges have been attracting and recruiting and retaining bus drivers. We don't pay a competitive wage, as well as it's a very casual schedule. Sometimes it's very full and sometimes there's not as much work. So definitely the inconsistency throughout COVID was difficult. Now that the restrictions are over and seniors are back out and programs are back running, it came back like a wrecking ball, the needs. And so just being able to recruit and sustain those drivers and attract them has been a really big challenge. And there's lots of good work we can do in that area, which I will speak to in a little bit. Is there any questions so far? You can still hear me?
We can still hear you, Crystal, and there are no questions currently, but if there is, I will take the opportunity to interrupt you while it's fresh in your mind. How's that sound?
Perfect. I'm so grateful you can still hear me. I just thought about that. I should have asked. So the community grant highlights, we are very fortunate to receive city funds to distribute to great organizations that work hard in our community. With the $35,000, this is how it was distributed. Last year, we also had the community groups come and present, advocate, and share about the impact of the funds, which was a great experience for not only myself, but for the board that were on the committee. Generally, we have taken a 10% admin fee to distribute the funds. This year, our board has passed a motion to only take a flat rate of $2,500 to free up more funds for those local groups. So we tried to approximate how much time went into that grant, our outcomes collection, our presentation gathering, and that sort of thing. So that is a good thing that more funds will go directly to the groups. You probably reviewed the grant ask, and I'll speak to our increased ask for community groups in a little bit. And we spoke to the increased visibility, so I'll skip that. I'm also timing myself, so I don't go too over. But these are the brackets that our current budget is built upon. So the Fcss provincial and municipal matching funds is $723,703, and that is similar to last year's ask, as well as the Fcss eligible programs. That's very confusing because they're both eligible, but the green budget counts for the Clive program that we also administer, as well as our Lifeline budget. The yellow thermometer there is our non-eligible programs. All of those are built and maintained by donor dollars and grants alone. So that can be sponsorship or donation campaigns, such as the Fill-a-Fridge, the Tools for Schools, the Coats for Kids, all the non-eligible Fcss programs that we run under our charitable license. So our entire budget is just over $1 million. And that's just a budget at a glance. And the next 3 slides, they're very detailed, so I'll go back to them if anyone has questions. But I just wanted to skip to the budget overview. So the provincial funding from last year has not changed. The matching city dollars have not changed. Those are the same as last year. The city over contribution request has also not changed, though there has been little changes in the budget that we've been able to do. For example, we had 5 empty offices and we worked with the city and were able to invite the chamber to sublet one of those offices for a really low charitable rate, as well as we gave one of the offices back to the city. So there's little adjustments there and to address those different things in our budget. The Connects and the community grant request, those are the changes in the budget. They account for just about 2% increase in ask. The Connects is only $2,000. So what that increase is increasing the wages slightly. They're not as competitive as Wolf Creek bus drivers yet, but it is an increase to address some of those needs. That there is room for improvement in that line. And our board has just had recent discussions and are open to using Connects in a more diverse way to meet the needs of our entire population. And that would just be an adjustment in funding and allow some money for safety training and competitive wages to attract bus drivers and that sort of thing. We have opened back up to charters. So we have been running buses for different field trips, daycares, the action group, and the high school students and that sort of thing. But there is improvements on how to best utilize the Connects for our entire city. The community grant request is up $10,000 from previous years. I know it hasn't changed in a few years, and it's a little bit of a significant increase, but that's to address the growing needs of our community. And another large charity that has just opened in Lacombe and in fact has already split into 2 sites. So that would be a partnership with Wolf Creek School Division and the BGC, which is the former Boys and Girls Club. So that is kind of addressing that need of our community and the provincial dollars that they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. So our total city request is written there, as well as our provincial grant. So our total operation funding request is just just about $593,000. So I'm just seeing if I'm getting a warning over there, but yeah, so that is basic changes compared to last year, is just under the Connects operations and the community grant request. Is there any questions yet?
There are no questions just yet.
Okay, I wanted to address the agency reserve update. I usually do speak to the reserve whenever I present budgets. It's an important topic and one that can often raise awareness or questions. So we have 2 different streams of reserve at FCSS. We have an unrestricted reserve, and we have a policy that not only our auditor has said we should have this policy in place, but we do have it in place for our own security. So basically the target goal of the reserve fund is for operations. So if we were not to get any funding for 3 months, we'd be able to sustain our programs and our resources for 3 months. So we are just a little bit over that as we closed our last auditing books at the end of last year. And then our second reserve stream is restricted internally. So those are for all of our non-eligible programs, and those are donor designated. So if you give a Coats for Kids donation, or you want a Fill-A-Fridge donation to stay in the Fill-A-Fridge program, those are donor designations, and sometimes corporate restricted designations. So that is the reserve for those programs, which we did access our Fill-A-Fridge reserve in spring to meet the needs of the community. Our community is awesome. So we also got donations, even though we weren't running an Ask campaign, but we just naturally got donations when people knew we were running that in a time of need. To dive into the Connects budget, the comparable is there from 2022. So the only increase there is just slightly in the wage category in the budget, and that would be the City of Lacombe Ask. However, if we had any changes to this revenue source for next year, we would need to make some significant changes of how we advertise on the bus, but I think there is great opportunity to sell advertising on the bus in a better way. We would just need to make some significant changes on our signage instead of just the little sticker logos. We would need the removable side panels as well. And so that does cost money, but would be worth it looking at that revenue making source for advertising. Nothing speaks louder than a moving billboard. So I think it's something we will look into for sure to have more sponsorships on the bus. Barb wanted to share some Connects highlights with you all. Our Connects coordinator, she does an awesome job. She loves her clients and loves the community and is a great face for the Connects bus. She has finally hired some sustainable drivers and they're doing well as well. And she would like, some more funds for safety training and things like that for first aid, as well as moving wheelchairs in the safe manner and that sort of thing. But she has some great stories to share with the different clients served. So I'll just let you read that at your own convenience. Those are her stats at a glance. So the buses are busy. The medical trips are usually out of town, either Red Deer, Calgary, or Edmonton. So once they go on a medical trip, they're kind of out for the entire day, which I learned is kind of problematic when you're booking other things around it. For example, we just committed to be the safe drive home for the Lacombe Chamber Awards. And so doing that around, what buses are available and who can drive or who didn't drive the dialysis that day is a little bit challenging with such a small fleet and a small staff.
Excuse me, Crystal. So with respect to the ridership there, a substantial increase of 16% is indicated there. Is that based on 2022 numbers or anticipated numbers for 2023?
That's a good question. That's anticipated numbers of this year. So we're already up. Our stats are already up for ridership with Connect. So I think she did it on an average to the end of December.
Thank you.
And now can you see me and not the screen just to make sure?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay, I'll try to stop share. I did, but that's okay. You can still talk to me even if you can't see me. And let's see. I'm a little rusty at the share button apparently. Oh, I need permission to share my screen because it's live recording. So that's a little tricky, but is there any questions otherwise in the proposal or in anything that I covered? Or is there any questions that I need to take back and gather information for?
As I look around the room here, there are no lights on, so you've done such a good job of explaining everything. There are no questions.
Well, thank you. I feel very supported by our board of directors and our city, and I've loved learning about Fcss and been on a lot of ride-alongs. So if anybody wants to ride the Connects bus, it will fill your bucket. So I strongly suggest doing that and seeing the people that we serve in our community and through all of the many, there's so many programs. They're hard to fit on a budget line for sure. As you know, our budget's a little complex, but thank you for the opportunity to advocate for our programs and for supporting the social needs of our community.
Well, thank you for presenting this evening. We thank you for the good work you do in our community, and look forward to another successful year in 2023. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christina, would you care to come up and join us here at the front? Next up is item 4.3 for the Mary Seymour Public Library, and we have our head librarian here, Katrina Petrazor, and Linda Nichols from the board as chair. Thank you both, and I just remind you to use the electronics there so that everybody in the gallery plus at home can hear when you speak. When the red light is on, then the floor is yours. There you go. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for having us. Do I have to go that forward? Where is there? Oh,
I knew you'd know how to do it. So I'm not touching anything because I'm gonna blunder it. We'll end up having to do a repair.
one of our predominant things that we worked on in 2022 was our plan of service. And we worked with a number of different agencies. We had to do it as a survey. We got a large number of survey results from the community, and working in the interagency meetings, we got a lot of feedback. And in this, we're supporting expansion of community programming through partnerships. So our plan of service is not all that different from our previous. We are still very much creating young readers with our early literacy programs. And we are hoping to provide a comfortable place, whether it's physical or virtual, and satisfying curiosity, which is lifelong learning. And those are the three that we will be working on this year. We have a very successful children's program, and we are including activities that enhance physical, emotional, social, and intellectual literacy, not just a reading program. There's often an activity, there's often play involved, and we use some of our STEAM activities as well. Our regular programming got back to work in May, and then we had our summer reading program, and our fall reading program is also full. We have more than 150 children attending this year. Also, under creating young readers, as we said, we're offering equipment to check out that can be taken home, and we're anticipating that a more permanent space or area will be available for drop-in use as we look at programming with an expanded space. Visiting a comfortable space, our staff have received training in order to be recognized as dementia friendly. We work with a lot of seniors facilities offering lending and reading programs. We participate in Seniors Week, collaborating with a number of groups to offer programming, and we'll continue to do that and to expand on our seniors. Visiting a comfortable place, we strive to offer the community a safe and comfortable space to meet and interact with others, or to sit quietly and read, and offer open and accessible virtual spaces that support social networking. Satisfying curiosity, we intend to enhance our STEAM programming through partnerships with Red Deer Polytech, and encourage more interest in the sciences among young people in the community. Satisfying curiosity, we've offered many programs in the past to provide lifelong learning. We've had author visits and readings have returned, and we highlight local writers and experiences. We began offering snowshoes as a takeout as a lending library, not just books. And it was very successful. They were checked out quite often. We've added some summer backyard games as well. So we've got bocce ball, we've got beanbag toss. You can practice, what's the game?
Cornhole.
Cornhole.
I know no one likes the.
For your
cornhole.
blind hall, for your blind man league. And we've had those checked out almost all summer. Croquet, if you want to get back into croquet. Our 2022-2025 plan of service highlights a need in the community to offer more programming for teens and youth. And I think Crystal made a comment of that as well. So we're going to administer a survey for 12 to 18-year-olds and asking them what they want to see, what programs and services. And we've started in the fall with some of our teen services. We have board games, a STEM event where you come and we do some sort of building. We have a Lego thing as well, and more crafting for teens and youth. We've partnered with Class Art, I spelled that incorrectly, a local emerging artist to provide classes for all ages and to encourage this local artist to build her portfolio. We want to collaborate with community stakeholders on community economic development. So there are a number of things that we want to do that to bring entrepreneurs into using the space so that they don't have to worry about that cost for them. We once again partner with the Lacombe City Cinema, and we're doing our 4i Film Festival again. We offer many services to the community to improve job opportunities by hosting job fairs, providing resume building, workshops, and offering proctoring exams. As well, we've partnered with Central Alberta Refugee Effort to provide English language learning and improvement to non-English speaking workers who are here working or seeking employment. The board has set out an ambitious fundraising challenge for 2023. Please come and buy a bag. So we're looking at a number of partnerships. We're looking at a number of grant opportunities. We've put about a $25,000 budget line item there. We're looking at offering sponsorship of programs. We can't offer sponsorship of space because they've already been allocated. But we're looking at renewing or reinvigorating those sponsorships as well. So for example, if you wanted to sponsor the book club for $1,000, that would provide books for the book club. We would call it the so-and-so book club. So those are the types of things that we want to do. The Lego club could be named after something. So that's what we're going to do in terms of sponsorship for 2023. It's our 15th anniversary in the LMC. So we want to sort of party like it's 1999 and make 2023 a really, come back to the library, come visit us at the library, come celebrate the LMC, come celebrate the space.
We work in the Taj Mahal, as you guys know.
So the budget, we have
Nicest building in town.
we have three main objectives. We want to maintain our high level customer service, and that's our employees. Transition to loss of fine revenue, because we eventually want to go fine free. And we want to use some of our reserves for capital expenses. We're doing a little upkeep on our 15-year building. So our 2022 budget income was 771. We're looking at 752 this year, but unknowing, I didn't double check. When we put in our facility amount, we didn't include the janitorial services. So that will actually go pretty much the same as it was last year. So we also want to increase, we do have an increased library service grant. It went up this year from the county.
By
Yeah,
$5,000.
by about $5,000 or $6,000, and that will be the continued amount. And we're hoping for more increased membership as well. We had a very successful sign up at PRL's barbecue. So people signed up and PRL paid for it. So we got the money, but we got more than 100.
$2,020
Yeah,
in 3
more than
hours.
100 signups. So that was good.
101 people waiting for a free card. So
Yeah,
there's
there
a
we go.
demand for the free card.
So we do have an increase in wages, the 5% basically. And we did have a decrease in magazine and newspaper subscriptions. We're hoping to get sponsorships for those as well. So the bottom line, to leave you lots of time to have discussion, is that our City of Lacombe grant request is a decrease of about 4,738 because our grant increased by about that same amount. So we wanted to try and offset those and be fiscally responsible and not keep asking for more and more money. But we're going to try very hard in 2023 to get a little bit more of community support, a little bit more of business sponsorship. And we're hoping that the government will continue as a support where that goes. We're hoping we're going to have it's been very good so far. We've had a lot of fun in the last few months now that everybody's back. We'll just open the floor for questions on the budget and any other items that you might want to talk about a little bit.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I guess just off the top, I'm intrigued by your desire to remove the fine revenue.
Yes.
And I was just curious, is it an administrative issue, or you find that people just do not keep items longer than they're supposed to, or what would be the reasoning for that?
In theory, in many of the larger libraries, it's seen as a non-access for people, because once they have a fine, their account gets locked. Sometimes they end up not being able to pay it. So it's a barrier for some people. And so we want to make sure that that's not happening for us. We have a lot of very supportive people who will pay anyway as a donation. It's something that we've talked about a lot. We didn't collect fines during COVID, and we did quite well. But in the PRL system, we have to see if we can opt out because they opted in to bring the fines back in June of this year. So we want to see if we can, as an individual library, can opt out of that PRL.
It's really a newer trend in libraries that they're eliminating the fine and the fee for the card.
Yeah.
Provincially. So there's very few libraries that charge fines or for the card anymore. So that's a kind of a board discussion that we're discussing. Do we charge membership, which is over $20,000 a year in revenue, or do we get rid of the fines? So we're not really, it's like a discussion. We haven't changed anything yet. I can tell you fines are starting to roll in though. People seem to pay them.
Yeah.
But it's like she said, if you owe it, once you're over $25, a lot of people will never come back. So it's hard.
Yeah. So we just want to make sure that that's not something that might be happening.
It'll be a strategic discussion over the next year before next budget time, whether we look at membership or
Yeah.
fines as an
Okay.
elimination in our budget revenue streams.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. But the Parkland Regional System has seen fit to re-implement their fine
Yes,
system.
Yes, and
Yes.
we're collecting right now.
Yeah.
We're collecting fines.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. Just a question or two here regarding when you charge for the cards. There's other locations around the area that do not. Does that affect your grant funding from anybody?
Not this year. We
Not
received
this year?
$5,000 more from the Rural Library Services grant. So
Okay.
there was
From
no,
PRL.
there was no addendum there, which usually it will say must have legal land description for all. It didn't say that this year, and we got an extra $5,000, and I just deposited it. And I said, I didn't get a decrease, because in reality, Lacombe being one of the larger reference centers and Sylvan Lake, in reality, we're providing most of that service, and we're providing it in a professional level. Like if you go to Alex, you're not gonna get an MLIS helping you find a book. So like, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of glad that whoever decided, I don't know who decided, but we received $5,000 more on the Rural Library Services Grant, which previously was tied to legal land descriptions and Lacombe County residents. So I'm thinking that we're gonna get an extra $5,000 next year too, so we're happy. And
I think what the question is that there are only a couple of us within the PRL system that it charges a membership fee. Because it's such a large amount in our budget and we want to transition
Yeah.
away from that. That's what we want to do, Councillor Gullickson. So we have to find $20,000. And we'll work on that. We think we can do that with sponsorships of programs and other things. So we would eventually get to the
Yes.
point where we are a free.
Free
member.
cards.
Yeah.
Do you, I mean, there's lots of opportunities to get free cards.
Yep.
Right, for people that can't afford it. And I,
We
yeah, we
offer
would-
that as well.
you'd
Yeah.
never turn anybody
We're
away. I
even
know
never
that.
turn anyone
Yeah,
away.
and working
And
through FCS.
I kind of get a feeling that the majority of the people look at the purchase of the card as a donation to the
Yes.
library.
Yes, that's exactly the way it is.
So I'm not really a fan of getting rid of it because, you know, I think of it as a donation to the library, buying that card every year and a way to stay involved.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, keep up the good work.
Thank you. They see value in it too. I feel that when people pay, and there's people that pay extra, I would not, we have generous people too that come in and give you for 5 people and we put it aside. It's just, you're right. It's $20,000 of real money. Don't want to get rid of it anytime soon because I'm gonna have to raise that. So
She's a pull.
her and I would have to raise that in our board. So, you know, we're probably going to be keeping it there a while, but the fines will be something we'll visit in the next year.
Does anyone else have any questions? I don't believe there are anymore.
Year
Good enough, pretty
15,
easy.
October 22nd, in the next week or two, stop by and see the facility if you haven't been by.
Yeah,
It's-
we will
it's booming.
be inviting you all to come by and see what we're thinking for the Kinsman area upstairs. If we can get into that space, the staff they've got plans all over they've got drawings, they've got all kinds of stuff. So
We're excited
quite
about
excited.
expansion in year 15. Thank you to the council and administration for approving the RFOIE. Can't thank Don Gullickson enough for all his support. And we love having Scott.
Yeah.
And I've got great board members and I can't say much else other than we're doing what we're doing and we're going to keep doing it because we love our community.
thank you very much.
We certainly appreciate the work that you do in the community and commend you on your creativity. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
And it's
you.
beautiful in here. You finally look as good. Now we're equal. Thank you. And the board chair is an amazing job.
So I wasn't able to see the screen there before it, do we have Mr. Chikerda on as well?
Hello, can you?
Good evening, Miles. How are you?
Not too
Just
bad, Mayor.
Very good. Because you are joining us electronically, just wanted to take a moment to welcome you and let you know that we will interrupt you at about the 5-minute remaining mark, just to make sure that you're aware of time. But certainly the floor is yours. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Mayor Creasy and Council, for having me tonight. I do apologize I couldn't be there live with you tonight. It was a little mislook at the calendar at our last meeting, and currently I'm in Edmonton Tuesdays and Thursdays teaching at the University of Alberta. So I appreciate the opportunity to beam into you remotely. And let me just share my PowerPoint screen here and get the slideshow started. So hopefully you can see that first slide.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So again, I wanted to thank Council for their time and effort, and apologies that I can't be there tonight. It's tough coming after 2 groups such as FCSS and the library that do so much for our community. So I'm certainly happy to be here and present the work of the Heritage Resources Committee. And I first wanted to start a little bit about what exactly the HRC is, because we are often confused with the Lacombe District Historical Society, who of course operates and manages the Lacombe museums, which we're so fortunate to have. Now, and we are an internal board of the city of Lacombe that is governed by bylaw 307. And in particular, it has the mandate that I've included on this slide in section A, or it's schedule A, and section 1 of that reads and states, the objective of the committee is to advise the City of Lacombe staff and council on any matters related to the heritage significance of any building, structure, or landscape feature located within city limits. The committee is also responsible for the management of the Heritage Resource Fund for the City of Lacombe. So while our efforts could be seen to be closely aligned with those of the LDHS, and indeed, I think the importance and preservation of heritage or elements of heritage in our community are closely aligned with other committees, such as the Downtown Area Redevelopment Plan group, we are separate and primarily focus on granting designation to buildings and owners who seek that out, and administering the Heritage Resource Fund's grants. Now, in an attempt to make this differentiation clear, we've adopted some new logo imagery, which you see at the bottom of this slide, and letterhead to try to make the distinction clear. And that old I Heart Lacombe Heritage really spoke more to the original steering committee that led into the HRC. So that is being slowly wound down. And I'll talk briefly about 2020 or 2022 work, and really the crowning achievement, especially in my mind, is getting 3 buildings designated as municipal heritage municipal heritage resources in Lacombe. And of course, these 3 buildings are the Trimble, the Flatiron, and the Denick Block. Really, what I want to say here is thank you to the owners of the individual properties. With the Trimble residents, that's Gary and Jane McDonald, the Denick Block, Hannah Downton, and the Flatiron, Glenn and Laura Calkins, because these designations cannot happen without support and work by the property owners. So thank you to all of them for reaching out to us and getting these designations in place. This level of designation protects these buildings. So it would take council rescinding the bylaws that protect these properties to demolish them. And certainly all the owners of these properties have invested significant amounts of money into preservation, renovation, and restoration. Of particular note is the designation of the Trimble residence, as it's one of the only residential properties in town to be protected. And we do hope that this is only the beginning for the next few years. We have 55 buildings or sites that have statements of significance tied to them. And we hope to see many more of these properties receive formal designation in the years to come. Now, other work in 2022 was some outreach and training. This was on June 9th, a wood window preservation workshop that we had been trying to get going for, well, since the before times, since before COVID. It just never started, it never happened. And finally, we got it happening this summer. Because in spring when we were planning things and COVID was still relatively uncertain, we did do this as a small group with HRC members and interested people from Lacombe museums. And the event was hosted at the Blacksmith Museum, where Denzel Patterson showed us the tricks of his trade. We got hands-on experience trying to chisel out these panes of glass. Some of these windows you see in the picture are 100 years old, give or take. And Denzel is also the individual who did such wonderful restoration work on the Blacksmith Museum. So we were very fortunate to have him be available to treat us to this event. And these are the sorts of things moving forward we hope to do for the broader community. Any heritage property owner, whether designated or not, for interest's sake and for maybe some practical purposes. Now, I'm sure council remembers last year we did have a large ask for approximately I think the council ask was for $22,500 to fund half of a places of interest list update. And this is going ahead. We did not receive the full amount that we requested from the province, but it was close. And we're very fortunate to be working with Michael Dougherty of Michael Dougherty Consulting on this project. We did do a full RFP process for the hiring, given the scope of expenditure. We received about 4 very impressive proposals, whittled that down to 2 for interviews, and Michael won out and brings a real passion for heritage to the table, and also knows Lacombe very well. So this is progressing extremely well. Michael has done various outreach events at Culture Days, at the the blacksmith event that the museums put on along the street outside the Blacksmith Museum. So this is trucking ahead, and this is extremely important work that is mandated in the city's 2013 Heritage Management Plan. Our inventories, both from 2010 and 2012, have not been updated since then. So as we get through time and more buildings fall into that older than 50-year category, we do need to assess things and figure out which ones are important or maybe should have statements of significance attached to them. And now I want to turn to our 2023 goals. I've been long-winded in lectures all day, so I do want to keep this short for you. And really, our big goal is the designation of 3 more properties. This year, we increased our inventory from 7 to 10, and I would like to see that go from 10 to 13 in 2023. We have some really ideal candidates that are undergoing renovation and restoration by owners right now. And fortunately, with COVID finally gone, it's much easier to reach out, go to businesses, have those face-to-face conversations that allow so much of this understanding and try and get past misunderstandings of designation. We will be finalizing the POIL update and using that as a springboard to continue public outreach efforts. So Michael is part of the project that Michael is doing for us is providing suggestions on how we continue outreach every year. What events do we go into Lacombe, whether it be, just a booth at the farmers market every few weeks or larger events, but ensuring we get our face out there and talk to people and promote Lacombe's history and our built heritage. Ongoing website efforts, and I do have a slide after this looking at just an example of some things we hope to get done, but really the basic elements of the website update is focusing on clarifying how a building gets designated, what designation means, and what benefits does a property owner get if they do go forward with designation. And this is in progress right now with the city's IT department. And so I'm very grateful for all of them for investing time and effort into this. Engaging with new owners of non-designated building. Again, this goes back to finding, targeting buildings that we think are outstanding examples of Lacombe's history and that deserve designation. And then finally, continue in our consulting role with the city on updates such as the land use bylaw 400, which does have a large section in it on buildings older than 50 years, and frankly does have some confusing wording, unclear sections, and we want to make sure we work through administration to clarify all those things, but at the same time not weaken the care and importance that Lacombe is known for putting on heritage properties. And this is just one example of the heritage update we want to see is sort of a GIS-based map where people can come in, see a story map, click on designated buildings, buildings with statements of significance, and learn more about them from the comfort of their own home and screen. So with that, all over, I will get into the nuts and bolts of the request. Our operations request went up just slightly. In past, we've asked for 2 designations per year, and we are hoping for 3. We did have some budgetary savings this year in that area as we had pre-ordered a few bronze plates, the designation plates, a few years ago. We don't have any of that available leading into next year, and along with everything else, materials are becoming more expensive, labor, etc. So we did just increase that by 1. We've kept our professional development, outreach, and operations at 1,600, and really hoping we can fully use that this year now that all those COVID restrictions are done. We can get back and out into the public. And of course, the capital bit, which goes into the Heritage Conservation Grant funding, that if it's not used during the year, just gets pooled in that grant funding total pot. And some years we might have one application, others we may have 2 or 3. And with every application that comes in, it is the property does have to have designation, and it is a fund matching grant up to a maximum of $5,000. And really, this is one of the key ways of promoting designation, where we can help owners, maybe take care of some of those more expensive items, such as recently the United Church and their brickwork. So total $13,800. And I will note, potentially in a few years, we may ask for an increase in the capital if we do get more buildings designated and people are taking advantage of the fund. And with that, I will end my presentation and turn it over to any questions.
Thank you, Miles, for that presentation. I just so we're clear on the oil project, you had suggested that perhaps some of the provincial funding was not quite as large as what you had hoped. But
yes,
yet you have no ask for additional money. So was the contract let for less than what you had hoped, or how are you making up that shortfall?
Once we found, so it wasn't a huge shortage. If I remember it was not, I want to, excuse me, I don't have the exact number in front of me. It was about 19,800 something. So not a massive amount off. And Michael Dougherty just agreed to absorb that cost himself. So we're still going full out on the full scope of what the RFP plan proposed. And Michael was very generous in basically saying, that's okay, I'll still do the work for less.
Wonderful. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Miles? You're getting off pretty light here this evening.
It's like this is lighter than I had my 2 classes today, so I had a lot of questions after those, so a little appreciated.
Well, we certainly appreciate the work that you and your committee have done this past year. And I know you look forward to another busy season for 2023. I think you've got the Trimble designation coming up at the end of this month.
Correct. Yep. The awards, basically the ceremony, and we hope it's not a too cold day, but there will be a press release going out. So if people are around and want to put on a parka and join us outside the residence and do a little, reveal of the plaque, that would be wonderful.
I certainly enjoyed the one for the Flatiron Building. And as much as I look forward to that, just so you know, I'm unable to make that event, but hopefully Deputy Mayor and others will be able to attend the Trimble designation as well.
And hopefully many more next year.
Very good. Thanks again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I would say, given the individuals in the gallery there, I expect that we have the Lacombe Performing Arts Center Foundation presentation next. President Grant Harder, you're no stranger to this room. Come up to the front.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mayor, councilors, judge and jury. Play this by ear. That's the big one.
All right. We're good.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. So 2022 has come with its ebbs and flows as we aim for reconnection, bringing people together through programming and supporting a healthy, vibrant, and safe community. The collaborations that we've been working on, creating community.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, we got figured out. Okay. Creating community collaborations is an integral part of our mandate and helps us fill a more prominent role building a safe and inclusive community. We have been building relationships and working with other community-minded organizations such as Lacombe District Historical Society, Lacombe Ford, Echo Lacombe, Alberta Health Services, and Lacombe Regional Tourism to serve a diverse audience range. We have seen programming grow throughout the year by building accessible programming for all. LPAC adds vibrancy to the community. We have been bringing in new artists to Lacombe through Music in the Park and at our indoor concert series. Our summer camps were expanded from 3 to 5 weeks. We are continuing in-house programming with local artists, writers, and teachers for youth and adults. We are excited to continue the under $100 art market previously hosted by the Lacombe Endowment Fund Committee this November, offering the community an opportunity to access affordable art. New art installments on the LPAC grounds and indoor exhibits for local artists to showcase their work mirror the importance of arts and culture in the community that the City of Lacombe demonstrates. Lacombe's dementia population is quite large, and we are proud to be part of Lacombe's dementia-friendly initiative and supporting a group of people and their caregivers in the area with music for people with dementia. The program is in its second session, building connections and creating a safe community. Along with our dementia training, the LPAC board has also had training sessions in becoming allies for the 2S+ LGBTQ community and Indigenous cultural awareness. Adding programming and continued education to meet the needs of the underserved demographics is one of our long-term goals. Working with community individuals and organizations, we're creating a hub for arts and cultural activities. We seek to serve a niche that fulfills our mandate. Building programming that is accessible and inclusive, and continuing to build relationships based on integrity, respect, and commitment to our community. While some of our long-term renters have been able to grow into their own space, we are looking forward to working with 4 youth drama groups, music teachers, artists, and instructors through the 2023 year while building on professional connections through Central Alberta. The Lacombe Performing Arts Centre strives to succeed for the betterment and enrichment of the City of Lacombe and surrounding communities. Our funding request for 2023 operating funds is $31,500, an increase of $30,000 from the previous year. We're also asking for assistance in trimming the guitar topiary on the LPAC grounds once a month from June to August. And that's all I have for this evening. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you for that.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I would just perhaps a fair enough request for this topiary work. Normally, council does not have much to do with designating staff, I'm assuming is what you're after.
Yes.
So I'm not necessarily sure that we either have the capacity nor the expertise for that type of thing, but I'm sure that administration will enlighten us whether we do or not at a later date.
We got excited about building a guitar hedge and then realized we have to trim it
Every year.
more than once a year because it no longer looks like a guitar. It's kind of just a hedge.
I'd hate to see it go to tune, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
There you go.
it got it.
Just a footnote, if I can add a couple of things. Music in the Park was tremendously successful in July and August. June was rained out 3 out of 5. And of course, when it rains 3 out of 5, our numbers go from 300 to 30, 500 to 50 kind of thing. So July and August definitely made up for June. Record-setting donations from the audience and tremendous response. Crowds in the 400 to 500 range almost every night. The weather was spectacular, as you know. Personally, I'm just thrilled with what's going on at the theater now. Rosanna's doing a terrific job. We've got 4, like just to encapsulate, We've got 4 different drama groups. We've got art classes. We've got a full-time music teacher. We lost our 2 dance troops that were dancing there. They moved into their own space, which is good for them. They're growing, they're healthy. But we've made up for that in other areas, felting workshops, all kinds, like, it's absolutely amazing. When we first started talking about it, we said there's going to be all kinds of demand and all kinds of things happening there. And by God, it's actually happened. We actually build it and they will come. So it's just been, it's been tremendous. And now that COVID is lifted, restrictions are lifted rather, it looks very, very promising next year. It's still a challenge to get cheeks in the seats, different productions and different shows, because I think a lot of people are still somewhat reluctant to go out in public. But we are getting people at our productions, so cross our fingers and hope those numbers continue.
As do we. We appreciate the services that you offer to our community. From my own perspective, I wasn't able to attend nearly as many music in the parks as what I have in the past years, but in the ones that I did, very enjoyable. I did have quite a few individuals ask me why you don't have someone carrying around the hat, so to speak, for donations. I know it's available there, but there was a lot of people who, for whatever reason, either didn't feel comfortable walking up to the stage to donate or whatnot, and yet you still had record donations, you say. So I think there's probably some room there for the people that enjoy it the most to still participate in paying for those performances. So I would encourage you to perhaps look at adding to that a bit next year.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. We made some changes actually to the way we're addressing passing the hat. Sometimes I think it's kind of cheesy to pass the hat through the audience. I think it pressures people sometimes that don't want to be pressured. They're there to enjoy the music, and to lean on them and say, here, put some money in the hat. I don't know necessarily that that's where we want to go. So what we're doing is we're placing buckets, donation buckets at different points throughout the audience, so you don't have to walk up to the front of the stage and put your money in front of the stage. And having a couple of people, volunteers, stand at the exits or the primary exits and sit and hold the bucket there and accept donations there seems to work quite well.
That's a great compromise. Thanks.
And the barbecue with Mr. Mike's Steakhouse was tremendous as well. That was really good. The whole thing just wrapped right together. No more beach balls. If you were there, yeah. No more beach balls. It was not the way it was supposed to go.
Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd just like to say that I think the performing arts is kind of the heart of our community and probably the image of our community in central Alberta as far as where we're going and so on. I think you do a tremendous job of promoting it, and I'd like to see it expand more and get bigger. And so someday where you say it's way too small, we have to move. I'd love to see that happen.
Scheduling has definitely started serving some issues already. So which is great news. It's a great issue to have. And part of our increased budget request includes partly that I have taken on a part-time employee as well, because I just can't take on anything else myself. So yeah, things are growing and expanding, and it's been wonderful.
Can I have a little poll?
Certainly.
Schools, are you working directly with the schools as far as some performing arts? Because I know one of the saddest days for me in this community was when they took the theater out of the high school. I thought that was a tragedy. And I know there is some drama clubs going on at the other schools, none at the high school, which is really unfortunate. And I'd like to see that come back if possible. So I was wondering about your work with the schools.
So the junior high actually runs through us now. So they run all of their auditions or all their rehearsals from October until their performances, which they hold in the springtime. And because last year was such a great year of performances for them, and all those, they had a lot of students moving up to the high school. We're really hoping that that'll serve kind of getting a jump start on the interest in the high school because we haven't quite connected with them yet, but it is our goal to get something on the go. Again, it's just scheduling wise and figuring that part out because we are filling up again, but yes, getting some more schools integrated would be wonderful.
Councillor Conick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. You identified in your fundraising naming rights. Are you looking to name some rooms or what do you have?
So we've actually had a 3-year contract so far with Shunda Construction and Consulting and Nowco Home Hardware so far. So we're in the last year of our contract with them. We're hoping they'll continue on. So Shunda gives is a $15,000 sponsorship for our theater. They are a big supporter of the Lacombe Performing Arts Center, and Nowco Home Hardware is a $750 a year sponsor for the fireside room.
Just as a note, we do have another room that would be ideal for realtors or finance people to sponsor.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? Well, thank you both for taking time out of your evening to come and present. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll maybe leaving with somebody important.
That would be obviously be Ms. Bellabona.
Saturday show this week, the concert is Camel 2. And
So perhaps while they're straightening out some paperwork there, we will take a short recess. It's 7:30. We will reconvene at 7:40 sharp. Thanks. For presentation is the Lacombe and District Historical Society, item 4.6. And this evening we have our Executive Director, Melissa Blunden. Welcome. And we did have listed a couple other individuals, but are you working on your own this evening? Okay, I'm sure you're fully capable. I'll just remind you to please use the microphone when speaking, and once the light is on, you are live and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. So good evening, mayors, council members, and city admin. As I believe most of you know, I'm Melissa Blunden, Executive Director of the Lacombe and District Historical Society, Lacombe Museums. And I'm very excited to get to present tonight. I feel I've actually had the opportunity to work with quite a few of you over the last year, if it was at a museum event or volunteering in the community or at one of the city committees that I happen to be a part of. And so really excited to kind of see some faces and be in person this year. The Historical Society had a very busy 2022, and we plan to continue that momentum into 2023. Figure this out. So 2022 review. Our work in the community this year has focused on 4 pillars. So access, inclusion, reconciliation, and engagement beyond our physical spaces to make us a more welcoming and available organization to all within our community. Our services this year, our main services, I should say, included programs, research, and heritage advisory services. A wide variety of programs were offered, which I will go into greater detail in a moment, but we did complete 20 research requests this year, spanning all sorts of topics from family genealogy to businesses, history of sports teams, history of buildings in Lacombe. And our heritage advisory services included historic home reports, digital restoration of photographs for community members, conservation support for community members. So if they have questions about how to take care of their archives at home, their own personal collections, family quilts, wedding dresses, photographs, that's a big one. We're able to guide them with that as well as supply supplies for them. So we also were very involved, as you heard earlier this evening, with the City of Lacombe's Heritage Resource Committee group. Big project with the Heritage Survey update. And so we were able to work with Michael Doutry. I volunteered my entire team too, and that's what all those photos were that Miles was showing, to be his minions. And so in one day, we were able to visit and survey 83 of the sites marked on that list to work on, which I believe is over 500. So it was a pretty good day for Michael because he's all by himself otherwise. So let's see. So the stats. So this year, it was a very busy year for us, which was really exciting. As you know, it was our first year with the Flatiron Building as our, I guess, flagship museum. We saw over 8,200 visitors as of September 30th. 7,800 artifacts have moved into the new collection space, which I know a few of you were able to come and see inside the Flatiron Building from the Michener House. 700 students visited us for our field trips this year, which was fantastic. The last 2 years, it was quite not happening like that. And so this year we were able to offer online virtual tours for the first half of the school year, I guess last half of the school year for them in the winter when they were not able to do field trips. And then in May and June when COVID restrictions lifted, they were able to start coming in and participating in person, which was really fantastic. We offered 40 historic downtown walking tours, 38 blacksmith shop museum drop-in programs, 38 Michener House museum drop-in programs, 38 art in the garden programs with an art instructor present for each of those. And that is in a 16-week period. So that lets you know how many of those we're doing per week. We did a brand new initiative this year, our history lectures and speaker series. And so there's one every month. We have 2 left to do this year. We've been doing them virtually, which has been really great. I know there's been a couple people wanting to come in person, but doing it virtually, we've been able to have specialists visit us and talk to Lacomians from Ontario, from the States, from everywhere on very specific topics that are really exciting. The one next week, if you're interested in quilting, is the assistant curator of the Royal Alberta Museum, and she studied for about 20 years or so quilts in Alberta and just released a book. So we are hosting her next week. We partnered with Alberta Health Services for dementia-friendly programming. We had 6 of those, and 5 rotating exhibitions at the Flatiron Building Museum, which I will get into in a minute. We also completed 2 conservation projects, one at the Michener House, which was siding repairs. And at the blacksmith shop, we were able to repair the trip hammers and the historic trip hammers and the engine that runs them, which they haven't been running for over 9 years. It was 9 years this summer. So we actually got them up and running for some demonstrations this summer, and it was really exciting. We published 1 virtual exhibit, Blueberries for Everyone, which is available on our website and will be forever. If you're interested in seeing that, it's all about the plants and changes of plants in our entire region. And we are finalists for next week's Chamber of Commerce Nonprofit of the Year Award. So fingers crossed we hear about good things from that. We were also nominated for the Alberta Museum Association Engagement Award. And we were published by the Canadian Museum Association magazine, Neighbors of Lacombe magazine, and the Artist Blacksmith Association of North America magazines for our innovative methods with community engagement. We purchased new shelving for the collection space with the city and county and federal grant supports. And we were able to facilitate the Love Lacombe Heritage campaign, which was our 50th birthday plus 1 year, because that was last year. And so that included the Spring Heritage Fashion Show, the Summer High Tea celebrations, the Service Credit Union Harvest Dinner, Lacombe County Egg Bus Tour, the Lacombe Museum Artisan Market, and the Lacombe Museum Blacksmith Shop Hammer-In Festival. That's a long one. And that one, it was our best event. We host that annually. It was our 7th year hosting it. And we had over 450 participants, and we had 15 blacksmiths from across Western Canada actually come and volunteer at it. So it was the biggest volunteers and public to come to. So it was really exciting. And of course, we participated in the community-wide events such as Seniors Week, Volunteer Week, Canada Day, Lacombe Days, Cheers for Charity, Alberta Day, which was, I think everyone had 2 weeks notice for that one, Culture and Harvest Festival, and we will be with Light Up the Night as well. As mentioned before, reconciliation and inclusion were key focal points for us in 2022. Our Indigenous programming was funded in part by the Rec and Culture Grant, as well as a provincial government grant, and it kicked off this year. So we were able to partner with Indigenous Tourism Alberta to set up a cultural awareness training day in the Lacombe County. It was hosted at Rainy Creek Ranch, and we were able to view the Medicine Lodge Hills in the backdrop as we set up a teepee and learned how to work with community members with Elder John Cryer, who's a very well-known elder in the community. And so you can see a picture there actually of you've been communicating with us at the museum at all. That is actually Martin standing on all of our shoulders to do up the teepee. So it was pretty exciting. There was over 50 participants from the entire central Alberta actually who came to that event, including, I have a few listed there, but performing arts also came as well. So there was a lot of groups that came to that. With that, we were able to display 2 Legacy of Hope Foundation exhibits at the Flatiron Building Museum and host school groups through those exhibits. We did 2 Make Your Own Orange Shirt Day events and hosted National Truth and Reconciliation Day events just last month. LDHS also attended our annual volunteer day at Elder Roy Lewis's home in May of 2022, which is strengthening our connections with the Maskwacis and Samson Cree First Nation. So our 2022 exhibitions, having the Flatiron Building in our care for the first time meant that we had to completely revisit our exhibition policy. And so we developed a schedule with 4 exhibition blocks per year. And each exhibition block is between 10 to 12 weeks, allowing for up to 48 weeks of the year for exhibits to be on display and available to the community in this building. So our January and April block was the Canadian Museum of History 1867 Rebellion and Confederation exhibit. And that was the first time a Canadian national level museum was displaying their items here in Lacombe. As I mentioned in the last slide, May and July, we had our Legacy of Hope exhibits on display. July through October, we had our Botany and History of Medicine exhibit, which is something that my team and I of volunteers and staff researched and curated out of local items here in Lacombe and in our collection. Our last block of the year, we're splitting up into 2 different time periods. So November, we will have our Portraits of War exhibit, and you should have all received an invitation last week to the opening gala on November 3rd for that. And then we're having a Christmas of Yore in December, which is less of an exhibit and more of an experience for the community. It's something that we're hosting to open. We're hosting and opening on Light Up the Night, and hopefully in partnership with Echo Lacombe for that. So. Here I just have included a few images from the year. I tried to keep my slide. I know I tend to take all my time. So I tried to this year condense my discussion and have a couple less photos, but I thought it was important to show some of the things if you didn't make it out. So here we see photos showing the Indigenous programming that I mentioned up at the top. Restoration work at the Michener House is the image right below it, where you can see the scaffolding while they're doing this work to the siding there. The bottom manufactured or changed with heat into either art or something tactile or usable or industry usable. So top corner with the art is Art in the Garden. Underneath that, we see the team of the museum doing the heritage inventory for the HRC inside our new Heritage Learning Garden, which I realize I did not include in the stats page, but we did finish the installation of that, making it a wheelchair accessible space this year. So it was a very exciting capital project we've done since 2020. And then at the bottom here, we see a view of one of our 2022 downtown walking tours. They were very popular. The more I say July and August, we were seeing between like 30 and 40 people. We offered it Fridays and Saturdays. May and June, it was a little slower. There were sometimes people weren't coming at all. It was free. It's all free. And so people weren't registering, and I don't think they felt they had to go. They would go next week. And so we've had a few people ask, well, when's the next one? And we're like, we are done. It's summer's over. So hopefully they learn for next year. May to August is the most of it. We'll do a few in September if we can. And we've been chatting maybe of doing some winter ones with sleigh rides. So we'll hopefully get a chance to do that as well. There we go. So our 2023 plans and goals. Here we can see a few images from the Flatiron Building. So our new collection shelving on the bottom, our wonderful textile volunteer Mario hanging up some new textiles in the new space. She's very excited. And then we've just done some naming rights for one of the rooms in the Flatiron Building, the Dr. Howard Ferdine Research Room. So we thought that was a nice way to honor our friend Howard. So our plans are to continue the move of collection from Michener House to the Flatiron Building, roughly 20,000 items left to go. Reopen our artifact collection process. So we've put that on pause so that we could control our artifacts more while we were doing our big move. We will say pause in quotations. We had a few donations come in this year from South Carolina. They flew up here with their suitcases, so we did not turn them away. We sat down with them over a couple of days. It was the Gilmore family. It was a fantastic few days with them. So open the Dr. Howard Ferdine Research Room to the public, continue to provide access to spaces with regular hours, programs, and wheelchair-friendly options, working on a business and strategic plan reorganization with the Community Initiatives Program grant. We're waiting for feedback on that, or it will be announced, I believe, in April if we get that. The Michener House Museum Reimagination Project. We're waiting with that one as well for the Canadian Cultural Spaces Fund. It has gone to their granting committee last month, so hopefully any day we get notice on that. And also the Community Facilities Enhancement Program for that, and the city and county capital grants once we hear back from the two major grant. We're talking like 50, 60,000 from the two big grants, then we will be coming to the city and county, hopefully in April, to look at getting about $10,000 each to continue that Michener House Reimagination project. New offsite program opportunities, including medicine walks and the 49C activation pilot project with the Downtown Area Revitalization Committee. New on-site workshops and programs, including our Fiber Arts Center at the Michener House and fine art programs. And 4 new exhibits at the Flatiron Building and 1 tentative at the Michener House. We will not be booking that one if the reimagination project goes through, because the Michener House will be closed next year then for construction if that happens. We will continue with our Indigenous consultation and relationship building, hosting unique special events such as the 2023 Harvest Dinner, Blacksmith Hammer and Festival, and more. We do have a date already for the Harvest Dinner for next year, so keep an eye out for an invitation on that. And development of a youth advisory committee with our community partners such as LPAC, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, Alberta Health Services, the library, and more. This is actually something we spearheaded in 2022. We noticed in June that we were having a hard time reaching youth in the community, and we were kind of making exhibits for them without them. We thought, wow, I wonder if anyone else is having this problem. So I just kind of reached out to a few of the people you've actually already heard from tonight, and we've had quite a few meetings already. The most recent was this morning, and we're working together to create a youth advisory committee for all of the groups. So it's really exciting to kind of have us coming together like that. And lastly, participate, of course, in our community-wide events where possible. So that brings me to our 2023 operating fund ask. So LDHS operating fund ask is in line with the city admin suggestion of 5.4% increase from 2022. So we are asking for $58,918.60 to support the many community services programs and initiatives that the Lacombe and District Historical Society is continuing to work towards. I would just like to say thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of our team of staff, volunteers, members, partners, and of course, my executive board. This time, I'd just like to open the floor. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I know that council certainly appreciates the work that you and your team do in our community. Thank you for that and for presenting here this evening. Councilor Dallas has a question for you.
Thank you. It's not so much a question as just kudos, Truth and Reconciliation Day. I noticed your social media was picked up by multiple other organizations to be shared. So good work on that, and obviously presenting the information appropriately and for other people to use. 900 visitors a month to the museum certainly sounds like a very impressive number. And then you listed off all the other events. So it sounds like the museum is shaking a lot of hands and drawing a lot of people to the community. So that's really nice to hear. And I did the very last downtown walk with your one summer student, and it was fantastic and great. And so thank you.
Thank you.
And also, I heard the LPAC was listed as possibly, I can't remember what Councillor Gullickson said was the heart of the community. So I would like to say you guys can have the other half of that, I think. So you
Perfect.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo much of what my colleague on council has said, but I also appreciated, I did go on a historical walk as well, and I have been on them in the past, and they seemed a little bit different. So I appreciate that they've been kind of freshened up and changed up, and I love that. And I'd even love to see like sort of different streams, I guess, so that you can sort of target different interests, because I think there's so much history that it's impossible to capture. I know it's impossible to capture in one walk, and I think that would be fantastic. The only question I have is in regards to, so the lectures that you've had, the history lectures or the speaker series, they come across my social media and I'm like, oh, that sounds great, but I can't go. It never seems to work out. And I'm just wondering at the possibility of if there's some way, even if it's just for short term, where that can be, captured, whether it's like just somehow archived, even just for a short period of time, so that if you can't catch it live, then you can catch it after the fact. Because I feel like those are such valuable things that are happening in our community. And if you just happen not to be available that evening, it's like you miss out. One of the last ones I think was it was talking about historical buildings, I think it was, and I was away at convention. So there's no way I could attend, even though it was virtual. And I just would have loved to have caught that, right? So any thoughts on that?
We do record them because they are on Zoom, and they're made available for free to members of the Historical Society, which is $20 a year.
Perfect. Thank you.
I will add, if I can, about the walking tours as well. We did spend a lot of time researching and trying to adjust them a little bit because they were hadn't been looked at for probably 10 years, I'd say. So we did make a new one called Intrigue on the Prairies, and it's a little bit more true crime related. It's pretty fun. It's probably my favorite. But we are working, hopefully, to do some, not quite a ghost tour, but maybe like a spooky tour, and hopefully getting into the cemetery to do a historic monument tour. But I've been told that there's some bylaws that need to change before we can offer that. So we're kind of blocked on that one, waiting to see if there's anything there. So if there's any suggestions from people in the room on that one, I'd be happy to work with you on that. So
We might be able to assist with the bylaw portion.
that'd be great. I will say there's been quite a few requests for that. I think just even from August, I counted 10. So there's definitely an interest for that in a very respectful manner, of course. So.
Anyone else? Lisa, thank you once again. Please extend our thanks to your entire team. We appreciate the work you do. I think that next up, we've got representatives from Lacombe Regional Tourism that we'd like to invite up here. Executive Director Austin, welcome, and President Mary. See how I conveniently didn't mispronounce your last name and excluded it altogether. So once for the record, you could say it properly for me, please. Well, I would have missed on all three accounts, so thank you for that. Welcome to council. The floor is yours, and I'll just remind you to use the microphone as well. Once it's lit up there, the bar on the bottom, you're live, and the floor is yours.
Last time I spoke with you, we were at the LMC, so that's why I was a little confused. So hi, thank you for taking time to let us present to you what we've been up to for the last year. So we're going to talk to you about Lacombe Regional Tourism in 2022. Who am I telling to?
We're driving the bus.
Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. Where we've been, where we're going, understanding the funding of where we're getting our money and what we're asking from you, and any questions. So we did in 2022, we talked about a rebrand. I think we told you about that last year, and we did get it completed this year. So what we wanted to do was to make it look a little bit more professional, a little bit more new and exciting for people when they looked at things, just so it's not a huge change. You wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it's Lacombe. We still kept the words there. We didn't want to go with anything that was really an icon, because you can get confusion there where people don't really know what you're talking about. So we went with a nice Lacombe Regional Tourism. What do they call that? A word?
It's a textual.
Yeah. So
textual logo.
Yes. So we redid that. You'll see the reason we did that was because we redid our entire website, which we had also talked to you about last year, and asking for our increase in funding. It's been amazing. It's great. We really looked at it from being workable for all levels of people who go on websites. You didn't need to be super techie friendly to be able to use it. We also made it where you can find exactly what you want to do per season. So one of the things we're really trying to explain to people is Lacombe region is more than just a summer vacation. There's lots to do here in the winter. Sometimes we just hide it. We all know we maybe don't want to share, but we're trying to tell people. So we have done that where people can come and say, you know, I'm coming in winter. What is it that I can do? And then it drives down exactly to what they're wanting to do and makes it easy for them to find it at their fingertips. It's also much more visually driven. So less words, more grabbing pictures that will make people want to come and visit. We're also working on Route 12. Discover your Central Alberta. So basically, this is tying all the different municipalities that fall upon Route 12 to give people a reason that they would want to come to Central Alberta and spend not just an afternoon, but a weekend, or maybe, you know, even half a week or something, and visit all the different areas on Route 12. There's some really cool things going on there, and Austin has been working tirelessly to talk to everybody from Eckville to Stettler to all the tiny towns that I will get in trouble because I don't know them all in between, to explain to them why they want to be a part of this and so it reaches outside of the Lacombe region boundaries, but this helps to bring people in because Lacombe is one of the largest towns on that route. So we're the place where it makes sense for people to eat, sleep, that kind of thing. So even though they're visiting other places, we're the ones that are going to be getting a lot of that economic impact, which is where they put their head in a bed. We've also expanded our team a bit. Austin, this is you're going into your
About a year.
third year,
Almost second year
yeah.
now.
So one thing that we learned about Austin is he is fantastic at going and finding and elephant hunting and finding the things to do. Sometimes he needs help. So we brought Diana on, and she's our marketing coordinator. She is an 8-month co-op student. She is fantastic. If you have been looking at our social media presence, she is behind that. She's really detail oriented, really looking at finding different cool pictures, videos, all these things to really show what Lacombe is about and get people excited about coming here, just bringing them in with all that information. She's fantastic at it. We also have Stuart Reese. He's come on board just recently. You'll notice a lot of fantastic pictures in our presentation and also on our website. He is behind much of those. So he's come on a contract basis to help us work with our partners, our members, to get better photo assets, as well as being able to put together some blog post articles, those kind of things, because we don't always want to hire out for that, because you have to explain to people why they should love Lacombe and what they should be looking at. Well, Stuart brings something interesting to that because he's actually married to a new doctor here in town. And so he is seeing Lacombe for the first time through his own eyes. So if he sees something that's really cool and interesting, it makes sense that he's going to know how to capture that to make somebody else see it through new eyes, not through our eyes where we've seen it forever and we're like, oh, that old thing, you didn't know about that. So it's he's really bringing a new vision. Yes. So Veery and Stuart are both great, really new portions of our team, and they're really helping Austin to continue to have the time to go find the big things that we're trying to accomplish while still doing the tactical work that we need to get people here to spend their money. We've also put together some itineraries for 2022. These are kind of looking at when people come to Lacombe, what are they wanting to look for? So the Farmyard Feast is talking a little bit about fork to table. So it tells them some of the places that they can find great food, beer, those kind of things, and also highlights some of the places like the honey farm and that kind of stuff that really interesting things where you can eat and drink and see the farms and do in Lacombe County. We also have hike and ride adventures. This features some of our county-wide trails, bike trails, places that they can hike, do different things. So more of the outdoorsy. If you want to come and you don't really want to go look through a town, where can you go back to nature? That's the one for you. And then the antiquing trail, which starts off in Muir with Gracie D's and kind of goes through and ends up in Bentley at my place. We also have a mobile visitor center, which you've heard about for years and years. Austin drove that thing all around central Alberta to Red Deer. I think you might have even taken it to Calgary for a bit. So we're trying to get our name and logo out there so people can say, what do I need to know about Lacombe? You can see it does have the old marketing on it, old branding on it, but we decided after we'd already spent the money that we would just kind of slow pedal getting that up to speed because they don't know any different. Here's some of the things that we did to promote the region. We did a media ad buy with Family Fun Calgary. This was one of the things that I pitched to the group to do. Family Fun Calgary is one of the premier what to do if you have family in Calgary. So they get hundreds of thousands of clicks a year of just people who have small children in Calgary wanting to know what to do when. So very targeted, very, what we tried to do is instead of going to newspapers and that kind of thing, we're really trying to say, where can we spend our money to get the most bang for the buck? And that is kind of one of these things, because Lacombe is a great place to bring your family. Your money goes further. There's lots of stuff to do. There's whether you want to go outdoors, indoors, we have everything. So that was one of the things we did. We also had Play Outside Guide, which is a blogger in Calgary. She came and visited us twice, wrote some stellar articles, really featuring many of the things that we know and love about Lacombe. Again, leveraging her audience so that they can see her as a trusted advisor. And then they say, oh, you went, you loved it. These are the things you did. They come and want to do the same thing. Same with Off Track Travel. They came and did some great work with us. They also did some videos and some pictures for us. And we also had a photo spread / article in Inside Motorcycle magazine. The pictures for this, Stuart did them, and they are just stunning. Like,
test run.
Yes, it is amazing. I actually know some of the people who volunteered to be models for this, and they were just wowed by how the pictures turned out. They were like, how can we buy them from you? These are amazing. So these were Lacombe residents who just over the moon happy with how this went. And they like to be seen because motorcycling is their passion. And they're like, we're going to be in a magazine and this is going to be awesome. And all the people who do the same things we do can see why Lacombe is so cool and why we should visit. We also have 2022 Outside Magazine. I think we did an article for them. And then I'm going to turn it over to Austin about where we're going.
Just steal the mic.
Okay.
So thanks, Mary. Glad to be back in front of council and worship again. Thank you. So where are we going for 2022? So coming up real quick, we're going to the Sport Event Congress. Why is this a big deal? This is the national level event meeting of the year. This is where all the big guys go for sporting events. We're talking Hockey Canada, pickleball, many other things. It also offers some training in there, and all the big DMOs that go after bigger events, they go to this too. So now we're stepping into that arena to start attracting these larger events to this area. Next, oh, I got it here. I was going to say next slide. 2023, this is another big one that we're going to. The Outdoor Adventure Show in Calgary. They annually see about 16,000 people through their door. Last year, they saw about 34,000 people through their door. These are outdoor adventure-based people. They are in Calgary for the most part, and they have a large disposable income. Highly competitive in there, where there's about 34 DMOs that go to this show. Some of them being our neighbors, others being a little bit further away. The reason we're going is that we're a nice option for these guys. We're in their backyard and we have a lot of the facilities and activities that they are looking for. Route 12. So as Mary kind of alluded to before, we've been steadily working on this, picking away at it. Next year, we will be launching the physical guide with the group and moving forward with some more advertising as we come along. Very excited as, you know, it's looking like we're going to be receiving more financial contributions from extended parties as well, or extended communities. So this is growing. It's something that I've also heard talked about a lot in other circles. So we're ahead of the game on this one, and it's going to pay off. We're also doing some research into hosting a Canada Games. Now, this is a next level event, whether it be summer or winter. The last one that was hosted in Whitehorse brought about $9.9 million into that community and economic impact as measured by the Canadian Sport Tourism Alliance. So if we can do something of that nature in a joint bid or bring it into Lacombe, once again, highlighting the facilities that we have already here. Roll with us. You guys are familiar with these guys. Now, thankfully, they're in Red Deer. They're also in Black Falls. And we have one of the only areas that I'm aware of that is connected by all three. So we have entered into discussions with them to bring e-bikes in as well, to talk about taking advantage of having a corridor from Red Deer to Lacombe along the Trans-Canada Trail. Very exciting because this is a very localized market. Red Deer is one of our key attractions for day trips. So something we were talking about and working with them on. Of course, it'll be coming to council before that decision is made, as always. But we're pushing them a little bit here. And now this one you guys might also be familiar with. So this is from Culture and Harvest Festival. So thank you for all the counselors and administration that came. It was very nice to see you guys there. The Hidden Hooks. So we had 5 artists come in, paint 6-foot-tall replica fish hooks, and this was their vision. Of course, the aftermath of this is what do you do with the hooks afterwards? So today in our board meeting, we had a good discussion about that. These will likely develop into an exhibit, and after that, we will probably take them out of this exhibit and hide them throughout town, making a nice attraction and piece for the community. We're also hoping to have 5 more of these made next year as well. So growing on that. Now, this is the boring slide. My apologies for this, but it's the mandatory piece. So understanding the funding. So in here, you're going to see our 2022, what we asked for from each community and where we're going. Now, this is all based on the city of Lacombe's population. This is all based on our per capita model that we are moving towards. And as you can see, we are moving towards an equal funding partnership as asked by our board and by the community at large between the city of Lacombe and Lacombe County. We've also approached Black Falls and started to work them into this mold. So we presented to them, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and we took questions for about 40 minutes from their council. So we're feeling pretty confident about that as well. So what are we asking for you guys today? Of course, we're asking for a little bit of a boost in funding from about 61,000 to 64,000 so that we can continue to move forward with our activities and continue to move forward with promoting the community at large. And with that, over to some questions.
Thank you both. The quality of the work, the photographs and the concepts you have are pretty remarkable. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't familiar with the Route 12 thing, but it's very intriguing. I think that's got lots of potential as well, as do many other programs. So congratulations on them. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. My first term, I was part of the organization, and it was very challenging. And the outcome has been absolutely incredible. So I applaud you guys moving forward. As my last year, the last term was just kind of the start of the transition. And this is awesome. I feel the hard work paid off when we started to make some changes. And this is marketing. This is the direction. And like Mayor Creasy said, like I was part of the last term, and now I see this and see what direction you went. And this is awesome. This is incredible. This is the start of some great things to happen. You're asked for Black Falls for 12,000. When you go per capita, yes, 12,000 is a start, but your per capita, I always feel per capita and a mean average is the fairest way. But I think that 12,000 is a start, but I think there's a far more significant direction to go with them as well. And anyways, yeah, I just, like you say, Mary, we were part of it the first term, and it was this is an incredible direction, and thank you, Austin. So congrats.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you both for coming to present this evening. We appreciate the work that you do for our community in our area. Keep up the great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Guess we should hand these out before that we
Yeah.
run though.
Here, give me part of them.
Those?
Okay. We just got examples of the.
Oh. Perfect.
Well, better than 400.
I don't know if I have enough to go around on those, Mary. Careful.
And if members of the Lacombe Days Committee would care to come and make themselves at home here while we're completing, that would be great. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mary.
Like the other one on the wall. It's got- Very subtle. Okay.
That's trademark. Well, it's wonderful to have members of the Lacombe Days Committee here, their chair, Christy Singer. And
I'm Jessica Zelstra.
thank you, Jessica. I'm looking at it. I've got 3 people. This isn't working right. Okay.
Yeah.
Jessica, we appreciate you coming here as director. You've got your microphone on there, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, looks like we got it here. Okay, so last year, or the year that just passed, we were a little bit back to normal. As the year before, it was a scramble to get everything going. As Lacombe Days is kind of a meeting thing, and that was definitely a challenge over the past couple of years. We weren't able to have Lacombe Days, but we came back stronger than ever. And the overarching story that we got this year was that this was the best Lacombe Days yet. So hopefully everybody feels that way. So Westerner Days fell on a weekend this year that normally our Lacombe Days falls on. So we just moved ours up a weekend. And that's why sometimes we have to change those dates around. We returned with all of the staple events that we had before, and we added some new events like Retro Jam Fest, a wrestling event, pool party, and lots of the returning events. A lot of the family events were things that were extremely well attended. So we tried some new activities with outside groups and are rethinking how we can revamp some former partnerships to ensure the highest quality events and experiences to the public as well. So again, we want to reach out more instead of just downtown, just the, businesses inside of town and reach out even a little bit further. So we were reaching quite far as we were advertising Calgary and Edmonton this year for that. And we'll get into some of the things we got from those other communities. So along with having community events, we also raise money as part of that to give back to different associations in the community. And so these events this year, we're able to raise $4,000 back to the events as we get volunteers to come in, and then we pay them either for their services or they volunteer so they can make money for their associations or groups as well. Yeah. So we saw the same amount of sponsorships at the end here. I'm not sure we have these in the slide, but I'll go over the budgets and the amounts and the sponsorships at the end there. So we did see the same amount of money this year as we did last year, which is actually very good for us because this year there was a lot more things that people could and businesses could have put their money into, but they decided to continue supporting Lacombe Days as they had done in the past. So we were very pleased with that and overwhelmingly positive feedback again for Lacombe Days. Thank you. Great turnout for the parade. In fact, this went quite larger than we have had in the last while that I've been on the Lacombe Days, and we had about 60 floats, 4 marching bands. So we did have from Calgary and Edmonton. So that was something that was a big favorite of the public as well. And again, positive feedback. So Kids Corral, 300 families came through the Kids Corral. Low cost entertainment is one of the initiatives kind of the committee, and that is to provide this whole weekend of entertainment to families, everyone around Lacombe for little to no cost for the families. We want everybody to attend, and we don't want cost really to be a deciding factor whether they get to attend our events or not. So we try to keep those very reasonable, if no cost at all for families. So we had a huge inflatables party. Both in both arenas were full. Even the traffic was slightly less than last year, but still a great turnout for that. And so the family extravaganza that we had there was a magic show and some other things that went along with that. And we were able to return $1,700 back to the committee for that because people liked it so much that they paid for that event. The scavenger hunt, again, turned out very well this year, successful for the community and for locally based businesses. So Jessica and I particularly head up this event out of Lacombe Days. We get to talk to so many businesses. It's one of the events where over 60 businesses have donated from last year and this year, and I believe it was around 80 businesses that has donated to the scavenger hunt this year. It's a small buy-in kind of with a little gift or something for the scavenger hunt, and then they're able to, like, we post that they're part of that event with us. So it helps it explore Lacombe and support the local businesses as well. Retro Jam Fest. Jessica, I'll let you talk about this one. This was yours.
We noticed that there was a gap in things for the teenagers to do and the younger adults. So we partnered with Joe Social Media to bring Retro Jam Fest to Lacombe Days. It was a part karaoke, part video games, lots of 80s, 90s, early 2000s kind of stuff for the kids to play with. We had hacky sacks and glow in the dark, a blockbuster corner. It was a lot of fun. We had about 30 kids show up, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for teenagers, that's quite the turnout. And a lot of them started texting their friends and using social media to post about the event. So we're anticipating next year a bigger turnout if we do a different theme. So
yeah. Thanks. So Beer and Wing Gardens, also one of everybody's favorites. We appreciate everybody who turned out for that this year as well. So continued sponsorship from the community on that event, and some last minute changes as we had quite the storm rolled through on that evening. But all of our assistants and the LMC, the staff there, and all of the patrons helped us move that party inside in about 5 minutes. And then we just continued on. So everything turned out on that as well. Fireworks this year, we moved them back to Crana Lake. And our entertainment and food trucks were supposed to be there. We were kind of making more an event out of the fireworks. However, due to the rain and the storm that night, we had to cancel kind of the entertainment and that. But with social media and keeping in contact with the community through that, everybody was able to know that we were going to still host the fireworks. And so that went off without a hitch. We kept our budget the same for the fireworks, which allows us to do bigger and better fireworks shows every year. So our goal is to raise the profile of Lacombe Days, and by reaching further out into further communities and getting more people in. In fact, we were maybe slightly a bit afraid that we would have too many people attend Lacombe Days, but we could never have that. So we're reaching further and further outside. And we were kind of advertising as far south as Calgary, as far north, even past Edmonton, for people to come and join Lacombe Days with us. So we're going to continue. So every year we continue to kind of look for new events that are going to join Lacombe Days while keeping the low cost events for families, but keeping it interesting. So we need to change some things up and continue to look at the events that we are doing. So to the budget, the city of Lacombe, no, it's not on here. The slides aren't on here, but that's all right. The city of Lacombe contributes $31,200 to our event. The county contributes. The committee itself was able to raise $50,000 of sponsorship from the community for this event. And due to our grant writing, we wrote for Travel Alberta and the Government of Canada, and we were able to take 20,000 more from that grant writing. So the ticket sales, when we do have an event that has ticket sales or revenue, that revenue totaled 11,500. So with all of the grants and what we had brought in from ticket sales was 142,255. So our expenses for services and events and all of that, keeping a $10,000 reserve in our account for Lacombe Days, just to ensure that everything keeps rolling, insurances and stuff like that while we're working. We're pretty much on par with that budget year after year. So we'll continue as a committee, as a volunteer committee, to ask for donations, sponsorships from the community, and rely, of course, heavily on the continued support of the city as well. So we really appreciate that this year, and we would appreciate that sponsorship and commitment in the future as well.
Well, thank you both for coming to present. I think through Councillors Connick and Ross, I think Council has expressed just how much we appreciate all the work that's done in that committee. It's quite amazing, really, the amount of work that goes into it, much more than the majority of us in this room even really fully appreciate. But we want you to know how much that we do appreciate the positive outcomes. I hear nothing but good things from people traveling after the event throughout the year, and it's pretty amazing what a small group of people can put on for the community. And I think the $50,000 in corporate support from the area just shows you how much it is appreciated by everyone in the area. So thank you very much for a job very well done.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll reiterate this year after year, but it's volunteers, like some wonderful volunteers came together, and we fed the parade, and it went extremely well. But if you the community year after year, sometimes the feedback you get is, no, they want to see more, but it all boils down to, and the arrangement with the companies, for example, I'll say we'll have The bouncy castles, we will have a nonprofit group manage it and they get the funds for it. That's how you try to attract the volunteers, that it's a win-win for both. And it's just, I'll reiterate this time and time again, year after year, is if group organizations come forth that way with an idea, then we support it in funding, and with the support of the city and its great staff and the facilities, you just collaborate them all together. So it's just trying to piece it all together with volunteers, our great city facilities, our great city staff, and an organization that wants to put on an event at a time and place. So that's how it works. And if anybody has any more ideas, we're open to them. It's just, I keep saying, it's bodies. Thank you.
I think that's one of the things we admire most is you keep a lot of the core items, but every year there's a little something new to try. Some of them extremely successful, some perhaps not quite as much, but I think that flexibility in bringing ideas forward that the community wants to see is very worthwhile. So thanks again for mentioning that too, Councillor Ross. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I guess I just want to reiterate too that like I really, really appreciate that it's volunteers, and I always like just say that over and over again when it's like we're leading into Lacombe Days and after the fact to people, because they have to be reminded that it is not the city that's doing it at all. It's a bunch of volunteers, and that's amazing. That speaks to our community for sure. But wow, like thank you so much to you and your team. I know that in the past you've done like a questionnaire survey after the fact, reaching out to the community. I'm just curious as to you know, do you get a lot of feedback with that, or yeah, okay.
Yeah, we do. So that is one of the things, and the first year of the scavenger hunt was last year. And so we found that attaching it to that, the survey for Lacombe Days, attaching it to that as a question that people get points for and entered for a draw actually gets more responses. And we received a lot of positive response. So these are some of the items that you saw in the slides about comments from the community is what we get from that feedback from that questionnaire. And now people not just doing the questionnaire, we're finding we're getting more response because, well, they can win a prize for it, right? So
It's amazing what people will do for a prize.
Yeah, no, and that I see that actually, if I might follow up, the scavenger hunt, I just wanted to comment, like, obviously I did it, and it was a lot of fun, but it was really fun to see all the different types of people out there doing it. Like you had a group of, you know, senior ladies that were out that I was bumping into at different like questions, like air guitaring at the, you know, one of the parks in town, like just being silly in town. It was all ages, like young kids to just, you know, like I said, our senior citizens. And that's just, that's a great event for Lacombe Days. It's celebrating our community, right? Another one that wasn't really mentioned, but I want to give a shout out because my son just loved it and he hopes it's back next year, is the wrestling event. Again, something really different and out there. And, you know, maybe it takes a little bit of time to catch steam. I don't know, again, what the future is of that. But just as an example, like I appreciate that you're like sort of thinking about different events to bring to town, right? And then, yeah, I also wanted to also comment on the centralized sort of nature of Lacombe Days. It felt like it was a bit more cohesive because it was kind of all, other than maybe the scavenger hunt taking you everywhere, it was kind of more accessible in sort of a smaller location as opposed to having to go way out to this end of town and that way out to that end of town. So like, for example, the Vaughan Hooligan being actually not far from here was nice. They didn't have to travel all the way out to, you know, Michener Park. So yeah.
Yeah, the committee did think about that, and we wanted to make the whole thing quite walkable. You know, most of the events quite walkable in the area, and so we really did take a better look at, if you're attending this event as a family, what other events might you attend, and should we put those in walking distance? And so, thank you for that. We did consider that as a committee.
Councillor Gullickson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm a little offended by Councillor Hibbs and her slap of seniors barely can do. Come on, you were shocked that they were out there. Shocked that they're out on the scavenger hunt. We can use our phones too, you know. Anyway, this committee, I was on it for a couple of years and outstanding by far, one of the best committees we have, if not the best committee we have in our community as far as getting jobs done. The one item I'd like to highlight, even though I enjoyed the beer and wings probably the best and the parade was awesome and stuff, not because we were involved with it, but because it was just good, was the youth part of that. And I would really like to see that expand and become bigger and bigger. And to have that area, especially that 50th Street area, they've tried it in the past, but I think there's an opportunity for us in the future to make that even bigger and to close that down and do something special there. I would really love to see that.
Absolutely, and that is something that we've been working on.
We're in talks with Joe Social Media as well. They're a big presence with the youth in town to try to expand things for the youth to do and to keep them in town instead of them having to go to other communities or stay bored at home.
Well, my view of that is I would hope youth would be coming to our community for the event,
We did have.
you
a
know, so I
couple-
would love to see that expand.
We did have a couple of youth from Red Deer and Black Falls and surrounding communities come in and do the scavenger hunt. So that was an event that brought in people from surrounding communities as well and showed them what Lacombe has to offer. So thank
It's
you. for
nice
the
to be able to have
counselors.
the seniors to be able to
Yeah.
encourage them to complete it.
We would like to thank the council for being in the scavenger hunt as well. That was a lot of fun for the community to be able to meet you and to have you be people to them as well. So
Absolutely, and to allow us to use you guys as a question in the scavenger hunt.
Anyone else? Well, thank you once again. We certainly hope that you're able to continue the wonderful work you do and encourage those watching to get the word out that you're always looking on the lookout for additional people to be involved and help in whatever capacity they're able to. Once again, a wonderful job and thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
I don't believe that we missed any organization here. I think we're items 5 through 9 won't take long. Do we normally receive presentations for information or no? I don't. Very good. So as far as next meetings, Monday, October 24th is our organizational regular meeting at 5:30 PM here at City Hall. Deputy Mayor Gullickson will be chairing that meeting. I'm unable to attend. Was there anything else for this evening? If not, we could use a motion. Councilor Ross?
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Creasy. I make a motion to adjourn.
Wonderful.
Like that one.
All those in favor? We are adjourned.